Good afternoon and welcome back to the South Carolina Public Service Commission. We are back on the record in docket number 2025-323E. All commissioners except for Commissioner Henley are here in the hearing room. Commissioner Henley is joining us virtually. We are in the middle of cross-examination, and the next party up would be Carolina Gas Transmission, LLC.
Is that working now? Much better. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, I should say that I was born here in Columbia 70 years ago. So as a South Carolinian, I outrank both Mr. Kassam and Mr. Knapp. However, I will never match either one in dapperness, so we'll call it even as far as credentials go. I have just a very few questions here.
The only thing I can say is I'm 2 days younger than Mr. Elliott, so.
Just a couple of questions here. Mr. Staten, you had mentioned a couple of times this morning that the intended gas transmission line would go along an existing energy corridor. Could you explain what you mean by existing energy corridor? Is that a gas transmission corridor or an electric transmission or electric distribution? What type of corridor would it be going along?
It would be going along an existing electric corridor, and except for about 7 miles, that would be greenfield pipeline.
Electric transmission or distribution?
I'm sorry, electric transmission.
Okay. And you also mentioned, I believe in response to a question from Ms. Mixon, when you were talking about the going across the ACE Basin and where the ACE Basin was, you mentioned that the other proposed pipeline would go through the ACE Basin. Do you recall that?
I do. Okay. That it currently does, I understand.
When you said the other pipeline, I assume you mean the pipeline that had been proposed by Carolina Gas Transmission?
The existing pipeline, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you just referred to that as the existing pipeline. So would you agree then that that pipeline would be following either an existing or parallel rights of way, a pipeline that's already there?
My understanding, and again, I think Mr. Kirkpatrick would have more information, but my understanding was that the final proposal from CGT included looping. So yes, while it would be in an existing corridor, it would be opening the ground in order to put in additional pipe, similar to the pipe that would be putting in by the Kinder Morgan folks.
And to be clear, you talked about the final proposal. My understanding is that there were several proposals. I was talking about the one that you may consider the next to final, that was not the pipe-only solution, the one before that. But would your answer be the same, that it would be opening the ground but along the same existing gas transmission line?
It's my understanding that a pipeline corridor, just like a electric transmission corridor, are both energy corridors.
Right. That's going back to my first question. But with regard to the other pipeline, the CGT proposed pipeline, do you agree that where it's crossing the ACE Basin, it would be crossing in an existing gas transmission easement or parallel, and not opening up a new pathway through the ACE Basin? Do you agree with that? Is that your understanding?
It would. Yeah. I've been in that business for a little while, and so you would be opening the ground and putting in additional pipe. That's what looping actually is referred to. And so, yes, it would be either an existing right-of-way, unless you needed to expand that right-of-way, depending on the separation you needed on the pipelines. And that I obviously have not done an intensive analysis of the pipeline there.
And I understand there would be opening the ground and putting in additional pipeline or looping pipeline, but in terms of the impact on the ACE Basin, which you were discussing with Ms. Mixon, it wouldn't be traversing the ACE Basin in a new place. it would be opening up ground for an existing easement so that once it's all done, you would still have just that one transversal of the Ace Basin rather than two. Is that correct?
I think, again, it was the details of it are probably better for Mr. Kirkpatrick, but to the extent the looping was only along those, and that you didn't need an expanded right of way, then I would agree with you. But if you needed an expanded right of way, then you would be opening ground in a new area of the system.
Understood. Thank you very much. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Decor Steel.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. CMC Steel. Is anyone here? Santee Cooper Industrial Customer Group.
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Lauren V. Moody, Stanfield, and John Burbidge. Thank you, Mr. Cook.
Thank you, Chair Powers and members of the Commission. Will Cook, representing the interveners, Mr. John Burbidge and Ms. Lauren Stanfield. Mr. Kassam, I'm asking because no one has yet identified them in the joint application or in the conversations we've been having today, but what are the anticipated adverse environmental effects we should expect to realize from the proposed gas plant and pipeline?
From the existing natural gas plant, which is what we're here today to cite, I can't define any environmental concerns in that regard. And I think we talked about the site, how it's conducive to that. And so I can't identify any at this time.
You testified earlier today that your company set aside some acreage at Kennedy's that your company intends to protect forever. Is that property under easement?
Well, it's a wetlands mitigation bank at this time, and I don't know the answer to your question. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Are you aware of any mechanism that would protect it forever going forward?
Simply from the standpoint, it's been set up as a wetlands mitigation bank, and as those credits are expended, then that property would remain in its natural state as those are parsed out.
Okay. Are you aware that Mr. Burbidge's farm in Hampton County is supposed to be protected forever under an easement held by the Low Country Land Trust?
I haven't seen any information confirming that, but I have heard that through this process with relation to Mr. Burbidge. Yes, sir.
Do you understand or know that the proposed pipeline by Kinder Morgan will cut right through the heart of Mr. Burbidge's property?
I am aware that Kinder Morgan had conversations with Mr. Burbidge, and I'm also aware that Kinder Morgan confirmed to me that that's probably a property that they don't even want to consider running the pipeline. But to your point, it was a part of the original proposed route. And everybody says, well, what's the route? You really don't know, out of respect for those landowners that you deal with. You know, right next to Mr. Burbidge, there was someone that said, hey, we'd like for you to come through here because I need that good natural corridor through here. But to Mr. Burbidge, and out of total respect for him and his property, I understand where he's coming from. And it kind of made me feel good that they decided that's an individual we want to avoid.
Do you know whether other conservation easements might be affected by the proposed pipeline or the proposed power station at Kennedy's?
No, sir. It'd just be assumption on my part. I don't have any specifics in that regard. But in all of it's just conversations I had regarding Mr. Burbidge.
Understood. What is your understanding of the purpose of environmental mitigation?
I'm not an expert on that to comment on it, so I'm sorry I can't do that. I have others that handle the environmental aspects. I have some witnesses that'll follow me, and plain simple, it's, you know, what you take, you try to put back.
Okay. my understanding of mitigation is it's designed to offset unavoidable effects of whatever kind. It's not designed to be a remedy for unavoidable effects. And the reason I was asking, you had described some examples of mitigation in your testimony earlier. So I wanted to be clear about that concept. What exactly are you and Kinder Morgan proposing to offset by offering the ACE Basin Task Force members a wildlife corridors mitigation?
That just came in general discussion with members of the ACE Basin Task Force, and they talked about how this this pipeline corridor, some proposed routes that could be in there. In fact, Kinder Morgan, I was actually present when Kinder Morgan met with them, and it was not referred to it as that, but it did have conversations with regards to working with property owners, much as we have done with our Powerful Wildlife program that gives landowners incentive to go and cultivate that right-of-way. Usually it's electric transmission, but it certainly could be done on a pipeline that can go underneath a cotton field, peanut field, ag land, and as a way to work with property owners to establish a, quote, wildlife corridor, as you mentioned. Yes, sir.
Does this proposed mitigation of the wildlife corridor offset harm to Mr. Burbidge and Ms. Stanfill, to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge. I don't know the answer to that because I don't know if the pipeline's coming through their property or not.
So the mitigation is only being offered because of the pipeline?
No, I mean, we didn't have a pipeline on electric transmission. It's just something that we've offered, and we were discussing different types of things that we have done with property owners to work in concert to provide, environmental consideration. Food plots is a big part of it from that standpoint, particularly in the ACE Basin, and that's how the conversation came up. So it wasn't an official offer. It was just conversation that we were having in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Might your company or companies plan to offer mitigation to offset adverse effects in other parts of the ACE Basin where unavoidable environmental effects might occur?
I mean, I'd have to take that up at the time. I can't answer that today.
Okay.
Well, we always work with property owners. Like, for example, in the ACE Basin, you make a great point. I mentioned Old Sheldon Church Road. We had a 115 kV transmission line that went down it. There was a property owner that didn't like us going out there and cutting those live oak trees. I didn't like going out there and having to cut those live oak trees. And so Bruton Plantation is the name of the plantation, and Steve Gavel is the individual who's also on the ACE Basin Task Force. And he said, look, I'll give you a 200-foot easement across my property. You relocate that power line over here off the Old Sheldon Church Road. And we did. And that is an extreme example where, and I'm glad you mentioned that because it's an extreme example where we had a responsibility for resiliency as it related to the Marine Corps Air Station and the Marine Corps Recruit Depot at Parris Island. That is why we had to rebuild transmission from Yamasee to Burton. And along that route, we worked with individual property owners, and at that particular point, that was of value to the folks in the ACE Basin for us to get off Old Sheldon Church Road. And believe you me, I wanted to get off it as well because in my years, Mrs. Gavel's mother would come out there and skin me up one side and down the other when we were down there doing maintenance. And so it's really worked extremely well. And that used to be one of the worst performing distribution circuits we had on our system as far as reliability. And as a result of putting it and underbuilding it on that 115 transmission, it became one of the best performing distribution circuits that we had on our system. So that in of itself tells you, I can't give you a prescription of what we're going to do today, but I can give you a good faith promise of what I will try to do with those individuals that may find themselves impacted one way or another for the mutual benefit of our customers in South Carolina, the reliability of system, the aesthetics and environmental appeal of any given region that we serve.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And just have a couple of questions for Mr. Staten. Thank you for those responses.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Staten, you stated in your pre-filed direct testimony on page 30 that Santee Cooper will comply with all applicable state and federal laws and regulations. In response to the question, can you assure the Commission that Santee Cooper will comply with all applicable state and local laws, regulations during the construction and operation of the Kennedy's joint resource. Do the joint applicants' environmental compliance records, in your opinion, support or undermine your answer?
No.
Have the joint applicants provided information about your company's compliance records to the commission?
I'm not, excuse me, I'm not aware whether Santee Cooper's has or not. I can't speak for Mr. Kassam.
Mr. Kassam?
Those are open records that are available to anyone at the Department of Environmental Services or EPA.
Okay. Would you agree that it's in the public interest for the commission to have access to this information?
As public information, they have access. I mean,
That's debatable.
Am I missing something here? I'm sorry.
No, it's not a trick question. I'm asking whether you think it is in the public interest for the commission to consider your company's environmental compliance records.
That's obviously up to the commission, and again, that information is publicly available.
But do you think it's in the public's interest for the commission to review that information?
I'm not going to speak as to what this commission views in the public interest or not.
Okay. Mr. Kassam?
I certainly think it's relevant. If we're trying to do this project, yes, sir. What we've done here in South Carolina, I think is relevant in that regard. And like I said, my responsibility is to have a culture of compliance. So if a drop of hydraulic fluid happens to go in a wetlands, we stop. We report it. We work with the regulators in that regard and do whatever we need to do. And, you know, it would be wrong of me to say that it's not a part of this. And, you know, I think that's important. And I should be held accountable to making sure that environmental compliance, like I said, goes hand in hand with the safety of my personnel who are out there doing some of the most dangerous jobs in the world.
Thank you.
Yes,
No
sir.
further questions.
Next would be the Office of, I'm sorry. Next would be the Office of Regulatory Staff. Any questions?
No questions, Chair Powers.
All right, thank you very much. Any commissioner questions?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
At the risk of flogging a dead horse, I want to quickly go through a couple of questions that I think you all have answered in a roundabout way. I just want to put them together, and this is for both of you all. Answer them as you will. Is there any risk to ratepayers for stranded costs for this project?
That's a pointed question and a good one.
I'm sorry. I meant to tell you this.
Yeah.
I meant to tell you this. I forgot about it because I'm rushing. Socially and culturally, it's not the norm to be so pointed and direct.
Yes, sir.
But following in your lead,
Yes,
based
sir.
on your testimony this morning,
Yes, sir.
I thought it would be okay in this conversation.
Yes, sir. And I think it's our responsibility to ensure there are no stranded costs associated with this project. You know, I can assure you personally and professionally, one of the things that always weighs on my mind is the abandonment of units 2 and 3 at VC Summer Station, and don't intend to go into this project and let it get that far down the road before it is stopped. As a result of that, I can't assure you with certainty that there won't be stranded investment associated with this, but I can assure you that my job ought to be on the line and I ought to be fired if there are stranded costs in that regard.
There's always the possibility that there, in a project of any size, particularly a project of this size, that there could be things that happen that prevent us from being able to finish that. But I agree with Mr. Kassam. Our objective to date has been, for instance, to lock up the equipment. locking up the equipment enables us to control those costs, but also that step is something that we would be able to ultimately mitigate if for some reason we had to stop. As we get further into the project, we would continue to try to develop some of those mitigation efforts. But again, I can't tell you that there's no way this would happen. But I would agree with Mr. Kassam. If it does, it's on us. It's on me as a leader, and to the extent that that happens, you got to hold us accountable for it.
And isn't it fair to say that any construction project, utility generation facility construction project, has the potential for stranded costs?
Yes, sir. And I'll tell you, one of the big ones that we experience is weather. And we've got some construction projects right now that are rolling because we ain't had rain in about a month and a half. But weather can be something that can cause you to have situations like that. Supply chain, we discussed that. With any project that you do, you're always going to run those risks. What I'd like to do is kind of like nuclear transmission that we did build and served this state very well. That's why Scout Motors chose to locate up there where they did, and this commission approved that transmission asset is used and useful. And when we constructed it, it was 562 circuit miles of transmission, and it came in on schedule and on budget. So you just got to apply yourself every single day, have that enthusiasm and effort, and not take anything less than that. And so, yes, sir, you run those risks, but any construction project, yes, sir, Mr. Vice Chairman, you run those risks, particularly in the environment we're living in today. Sometimes everybody's talking about being able to pay for components. Heck, with the supply chain, sometimes we're just glad to get components. And so that's why, as Mr. Staten said, we've stepped out there to go ahead and we'll piece this thing together to get as much certainty and surety before the end of this year. And then it'll be our job to monitor it and work towards that as we go forward. I'd love to come in here, years from now and tell you we did it on budget. You know why? Because, it's just like anybody. You want people to be proud of you and what you do. And I feel no different about the 7 commissioners up there that we come in here and petition you for, that, y'all are a part of this just as much as we are in bringing it to a successful conclusion on budget. We mentioned this earlier in our discussions. We think we have to think and plan in terms of decades, and the world changes, policies change on increments of 2 or 4 years generally. And so again, for any utility type of investment like this, with all of the uncertainty going on around, of course there's that risk. But again, the best job that Mr. Kassam and I can do would be to take every effort to mitigate those as the project continues. And again, we're taking those steps now, and we will continue to do that, and we will continue to be very, very transparent about it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Staten, that leads to my next question. It's fair to say that both the joint applicants have been very transparent in this process from initiation up to this point.
I would say yes.
Okay. And you're welcome to answer, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Kassam.
I think that's the expectation.
Yes, sir. And the reason I'm going through this, there's been a lot of questions back and forth. From what I've seen through the testimony so far, you all do not appear to be playing any games or seeking to hide the ball. I don't sense that. No. I just want to get an affirmative.
Yep.
I can only say what my grandma told me: what you do in darkness will eventually come to light. And so you may as well be upfront about it and straight up to begin with, and then you don't have to go back and worry about it after the fact. We've talked about the costs, we've talked about the schedule, we've talked about components, and we tried to be very straightforward about that, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
And absolutely the same with Santee Cooper. We've been very open and transparent. There were some, intimations that somehow we should have updated sooner. The fact of the matter is we didn't. We were going through the process when we went out for further information. That's when we identified that costs were changing dramatically, and we talked about that publicly. It's not something we withheld. We shared it with our board, and again, those board meetings are public meetings.
Thank you, sir. As it relates to the General Assembly and the passage of Act 41, would both of you agree with me that the General Assembly has delegated their duty to regulate rates to the Public Service Commission?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely for utilities, with the exception of Santee Cooper. Santee Cooper, our board establishes our rates.
Right. And so as it relates to Act 41, whatever happened in the enactment phase, based on where we are now, isn't it the Public Service Commission's responsibility to determine whether or not you all's application should be approved or denied?
Absolutely is.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How would you balance the environmental impact of this facility, if it's approved, with the public convenience and necessity?
Well, I think as I tried to demonstrate in the video, this is a very technologically superior unit for efficiency when we talked about the steam turbines, the Hercigs, and the gathering of the exhaust. At the same time, from a generation asset perspective, very little emissions in that regard. They mentioned earlier when I had that with the guy from South Carolina ETV, I actually shot that at Columbia Energy Center, which is a 2-on-1 facility in Calhoun County. And when he came there, I walked around the plant with him, and he looked way up, and he said, "Is it on?" And he was doing it based upon the fact that he couldn't see anything coming out the stack. And I said, "Oh, yeah, it's on," and he knew it was on. And so I think from an efficiency standpoint, it is just as efficient when it comes to environmental impact, where it comes to the air-cooled condensers that will cool it, when it comes to its footprint of 190 acres on a greenfield site, and also when it comes to the lack of emissions that will be associated with it in that regard. So I believe that by choosing and selecting this technology and this fuel source, we are certainly more superior than the coal-fired units that were there, but as Mr. Staten said, the most efficient unit on our system, but also the most environmentally sensitive unit on our system.
Yeah. Our job is to balance the affordability, the reliability of the system while managing the environmental impacts. And I know that's what this commission is trying to determine as well. And so I think Mr. Kassam explained that this flexible resource is incredibly important to us at Santee Cooper as we move forward. It's also very important from an affordability perspective that this superior technology with great ramp up and down capability that enables us to integrate even more intermittent resources like solar keeps it affordable, and the environmental impact here is justified given the fact that we are using the best and most current technologies.
In you all's opinion, from a ratepayer perspective, is it fair to expect that there will be some level of environmental impact with any form of generation put into service?
Yes, sir, I believe so. A lot of people say, well, maybe not with hydro, but you got water flows, and you got to maintain that. You got downriver when it comes to hydro. Nuclear says, well, it doesn't emit, but you got the storage situation for spent fuel. Coal, you saw where we had to clean up the site there with the combustible coal residue or the ash, and then with gas, yes, sir. Anytime you burn something, you're gonna have an environmental impact, and we'll be burning something. We'll be burning natural gas from that perspective, and so it's got to be weighed based upon the benefits of continuing to supply energy to meet the needs of a growing state here in South Carolina.
And, you know, I again agree with Mr. Kassam. Every resource that you would bring to the table has some form of environmental impact. If you look at batteries, the inert minerals that are in that have to be taken care of. The panels and the materials that are in the panels have to be disposed of in some form or fashion. So there is, in my view, there is no generation resource that doesn't have some impact from an environmental perspective. Obviously, they vary depending on the resource.
Thank you, gentlemen. And whatever the expected environmental impact of this project, if approved, will the facility, once it's online and even through the construction process, if approved, will it comply with local, state, and federal environmental laws?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
It will. And I will also say on top of that, we talk about oversight. One of the things that we do, Mr. Staten's folks, Brian, his environmental guys here, and every quarter we meet with the Department of Environmental Services. They come in and they want to know what projects we have. We talk about anything that we have going on related, and a lot of it, Mr. Vice Chairman, is related to generation projects. There'll be some linear projects like pipeline projects or transmission projects, but we have that conversation with them, and we meet on a quarterly basis. And Director Reese, as well as all of her bureau chiefs, are present in their staff as well. So that just gives you another assurance of the continuing oversight and collaborative conversations that go on regarding current operations, future operations, and any intended permits.
Okay. This is my last question, gentlemen. To your knowledge, will there be any ratepayer or community member living in the proposed footprint of this project that will be displaced from their home?
No, sir.
No, I'm not aware of any.
All right. Thank you very much for your answers. Mr. Chair, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Commissioner Britt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to say one quick thing. I want to thank the two companies in your presentation earlier, your opening statements, along with all the interveners. Shows a lot of class in South Carolina, whether you were born here or you live here, or however how long. So you've done a great job, and I really appreciate that video too, because I've actually never been to the site. I contemplated asking our executive director to see if we could do a site visit. You did that for me by showing the video. So thank you all. I know the passion that goes into this, you know, on both sides of the table, and I appreciate that very much. And I guess this could go to Mr. Staten or Mr. Kassam. Do y'all know who are the four fastest growing of the 10 fastest growing counties in South Carolina? Do you know what counties those are?
I know Horry. I know Horry and Berkeley are two of them.
I'd throw in Jasper and Dorchester.
Those are it.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned them earlier. So
We feel it every day.
four of the 10 fastest growing counties in South Carolina are within this service area. And I live in the second fastest growing county, and I represent the third fastest growing, Spartanburg and Greenville. So there are 10 counties that are growing extremely fast with population, and projected to continue that growth for the next 12 to 14 years at unprecedented numbers. But the shocking thing is that there are 10 counties that are just holding their own. And when you look at, we're sitting in one of the counties right now that's not one of the fastest growing. Neither is Richland County. And then there are 26 counties that are dying on the line right now. They're declining in population. And it's not just Allendale, Marlborough County, Dillon County, where I was born and raised. There are two counties right beside Spartanburg, Union County and Cherokee County. Shocking. You know, with Cherokee County having I-85 come right through it. I ask that question because, you know, to me, this is a transformational project, majorly. It moves the needle. So, and I think with that, we have to give it as much consideration in questioning as we've been doing for the last almost 5 hours. you know, and I appreciate both of y'all coming to our public hearings a couple of weeks ago, both in Walterboro and here last week, with the testimony. And again, like I said, I've never seen the Kennedy site in person. But after listening to all the testimony in Walterboro and here last week, you know, at both our 4 o'clock and 7 o'clock session, I just pictured an environmental disaster, because that's what was testified, that this project has tremendous environmental challenges, public health issues. One person said close to 2 million people have the chance of, you know, coming down with serious public health issues, including cancer. In fact, I think Mr. Gooding testified earlier in his opening comment that that this project threatens to damage the Edisto River and the Ace Basin for years to come. And I really expected to see it. I had no idea. I thought there was going to be a lot more issues with the coal-fired plant. Also had no idea it was right on the Edisto River. I mean, I've heard testimony it was close. It is right on it. So I really, I expected to see something different. And last week I asked one of the witnesses that was testifying, how long had that coal-fired plant been there? Because this gentleman said he lived in that area and was raised there. He didn't know. I think you said it earlier, Mr. Kassam.
1962 to 2013.
And by my Dillon County math, that's 51 years.
That's correct.
And I was really surprised to see that. I expected 15, 20 years based on all this testimony I was hearing. And one of the, you know, and Vice Chairman Williams made and that was one of my questions I was going to ask, because we heard testimony from several people that this gas line coming in would be disruptive, would actually it would make some older senior citizens have to move out of their homes. Is that true?
No, sir.
And I thought that's how you answered that. Got another question, because even today, a lot of the interveners have brought up VC Summer 2 and 3 in relation to the budget on this project. Had y'all just said, okay, you know, damn the torpedoes, we're going to finish 2 and 3, what would it have cost in some type estimate?
It would have cost. Well, the data point out there is Vogel, and Vogel was between $35 and $38 billion to get the project completed, and so we stopped a little bit after about 9.7, and so we would have spent again essentially 4 times that number in order to finish VC Summer 2 and 3.
Well, I just wanted to know. I had no idea, just based on I heard you say somewhere around 38 billion for Vogel 3 and 4.
Yep.
We recently had a similar project that was cited in Anderson. Do you know the cost of that project?
No, sir.
You don't?
No, sir.
$3.2 billion, and it will generate 1,400 megawatts. This project, you know, I round up to Mr. Kassam, it's 2,200 megawatts.
Yes, sir.
And right now the budget's somewhere around $5 to $5.5 billion.
That's exactly.
So
that math is correct.
We've got one that is on the books that we voted on, that has gone through all the process. Mr. Gooding also mentioned this when we were talking about the potential damage. Do you see this project being more harmful to the Ace Basin, Mr. Kassam, and the Edisto River as more harmful than was the coal-fired plant?
Oh, no, sir. It'll use so much less water, and its emissions will be so much less, and no more than Columbia Energy Center is to the wonderful Congaree, nor Jasper is to the Savannah River down in that area. That's why everybody's going to these, because the environmental rules are getting stricter and stricter. The federal government's making you spend more money through EPA to retrofit certain processes within these facilities, and that's why this emerges as the choice going forward for a generation mix. It's cost, it's efficiency, it's loaded on the system first, it's the flexibility the unit brings as a brake and accelerator for non-dispatchable solar we have saturated on our system. And then the prize of all of it is its emissions from an environmental standpoint are so much less.
Mr. Staten, I remember the picture that showed up on the screen that you said you'd have on above your fireplace if your wife would let you.
Yep.
What was that facility?
That was our Rainey facility up in Anderson County.
Okay, so in Rainey.
Yep.
Does that facility produce any environmental issues?
No, sir. I mean, it has been there a long time. You saw the emissions. It was operating at that point in time. You saw that we've not had significant environmental issues at all.
Was that around 1,000 megawatts?
It's currently at 1,150, but after the work that gets done, that this commission approved, it'll be closer to 1,400 megawatts.
And I'm going to flip back to my question coming up off of those 2 points, because Mr. Gooding made a comment in his opening statement that this facility, the Kennedy's facility, will use tens of millions of gallons of water a month. And I thought I heard you say, Mr. Kassam, that this is an air-cooled facility.
Yes, sir. Next to the steam generators that were in that white building, you saw those 3 sections that rise up there. Those are air-cooled condensers. Mr. Walker will be better to state how much water it will take up, but it is a fraction of what was there with the coal plant, and it will also be a fraction of what our existing 2-on-1 and 3-on-1 have, because they don't have those air-cooled condensers that you saw, kind of the stacked things to the right.
Do you think it's going to use tens of millions of gallons of water a month?
I can't say exactly. You know, people throw these numbers at you and they want you to stand by them, and I'm not trying to avoid your question, but I do not think it'll be to that amount.
What's his name, the gentleman?
Andrew Walker.
Okay. My last comment, it's not a question, but as I said, I think this is a very transformational project, and it demands the attention we all are giving it, and I appreciate that. But you know, it takes me back in how quickly time flies, because when you think this project will be here for 30 to 40 years, you think that's a long time. But in 1962, and I've used this a lot because I've been in the construction business for almost 40 years plus, and you think about times of construction. But in 1962, there was a big construction project that had already started really in 1957, but it was making its way through the upstate of South Carolina. It was heading. It was being engineered and designed to go right through Union. Do y'all remember what happened in 1962 to Union County?
That's before my time.
You're too young.
I'm sorry.
And I wasn't living up there, but I've studied it pretty hard. Union County made a decision. They didn't want that interstate going through their county. And there were a couple reasons. The leadership, along with their Senator John D. Long, made a decision. They didn't want the interstate going through, causing all the disruption, all these people being in their area, all the traffic and the growth. They didn't want that. They had 37,000 people in 1962. Today, they have 27,000, and they don't have an interstate. That interstate was moved around. It goes from Columbia, Newberry, Clinton, makes a big sweep back into Spartanburg County. And Spartanburg County at the time probably had 150,000 people. Today, we're pushing 400,000. And you know what we've done with economic development. 1992, 30 years later, it seems like a lot longer than that. There was another big project that was transformational, needle moving. It was BMW. And I had people, I was on council. I worked with Governor Campbell at the time. I had people telling me, do not do this because it will change the way Spartanburg is. And I looked around, everything was boarded up. Fortunately, in 1992, we did not make that decision. We decided to go forward and move the needle. So just remind you just can't have it with those 10 counties that are right now growing exponentially. Just like you talk about with availability, reliability, and affordability on power. We have to look at these projects seriously. So that concludes my questions and comments, and thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Britt. Commissioner Caston.
Chair Powers, thank you. Your grandma must have been a very wise woman, I can tell.
She knew her Bible.
Told you. I think, Mr. Staten, you're the one that said something about 45% of the cost locked in. 45% of the cost of the project were locked in. Is that correct? Is that
25%.
20?
Yes, sir.
Well, what's 20%? 25%. 25. Does that include like turbines or equipment or
It's
now?
It's most of the major equipment. So it would be turbines, transformers, the rest of the power block area.
Long lead item?
Yeah, absolutely long lead time items, particularly turbines that are in the 4 to 5 year range. So that's,
I assume that. Just wanted to make sure. Now, when we say locked in, does that mean the cost and price is locked in?
yes, we've ordered them. We're making payments on those over time as they continue to progress.
Good, thank you. And with all the questions back and forth, I may have gotten lost in some of it. I want to ask this just in case. In the earlier versions, and I'm not trying to resurrect this cost stuff, but in the earlier versions of the cost estimates, the 2.5, or it's going to be more than 2.5, whatever it was. In the earlier versions, were those versions estimated based on 3 1x1?
They were estimated on a variety of factors. We have a parent company in Richmond, Virginia, and we have a large projects team that had recently built 2-on-1s and 3-on-1s. And so we had a lot of knowledge from a price standpoint in order to be able to establish those estimates. And Mr. Staten has talked about it, but then at the same time, these are in demand. These gas turbines are so in demand, and it's a great thing for Commissioner Britt's area up there with GE, and also down in Savannah, where a lot of South Carolina employees cross over that river every day to work with Mitsubishi. So all of these are right here, close to South Carolina, and that's a great thing. That's a great thing. But they're escalating. Everybody wants them. Saudi Arabia wants them. Dubai wants them. The Middle East wants them. The open season that Kinder Morgan had throughout the southeast over there, fully subscribed, because that's what these utilities intend to do going forward. And the only thing that we got to worry about is, thank goodness, at Mr. State and Mr. Fennessy's urging, we went in and worked it out where we could go ahead and secure 25% of that. Now we got to take care of the EPC. And any moment that you wait around, we'll be back in here. We won't be talking about $5 billion. We'll be talking about $5 billion plus something else, simply from demand. It's economics is what's driving it. It isn't anybody's inability to go in and do an estimation. I know everybody likes to attack you for that for various reasons, but it isn't about estimation. It's economics. It's supply and demand. And it's like Commissioner Britt said, you either jump on board now and move forward to secure energy supply for South Carolina, or you sit around, or you fight it, and you will have a problem then. That difference in $2.5 billion in 30 years, it won't amount to anything. And I'm not disparaging it. It matters today. $25 matters today. But it's a matter of economics. It isn't bad estimation. It's supply and demand. And if anybody doesn't see that, they hadn't been in a grocery store, they hadn't tried to build something, they hadn't tried to order something, they hadn't tried to construct something.
But the good news, go ahead, you were going to say something.
No, I was not. Other than I fully agree with Mr. Kassam. This is the estimates we provided at the time we provided those were the best information that we had. When we went back out, as we were preparing to move forward jointly, we went back out for bids on things like equipment and labor costs, and those numbers had gone up dramatically. And I agree with Mr. Kassam. Everything has gone up. There isn't anything that's happening today, and yet and this is one of one of the challenges that we have as an industry is there's an expectation somehow that we avoid tariffs, that we somehow are able to avoid inflation, that that we as utilities are not supposed to pay our teams in order to keep up with inflation. That's just simply not possible. And so it wasn't a bad estimate at the time. It was a good estimate at the time. This is a good estimate with some risk built in at $5 billion, but I agree with Mr. Kassam. I can't guarantee $5 billion any more than I was able to guarantee 2.5.
But 25% of those long lead
Are
fixed
locked in.
items are
And then
fixed.
that engineering
Yes, sir.
procurement contract that we already gone out for an RFP, when it comes in, we'll lock in even more.
Yep.
And we didn't have any 2.5 or $5 billion projects, but we had a few projects, and I understand that to a degree. I do.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Kassam, did I hear you say earlier that Dominion projects demand growth 20 years in the future, or did I not hear
It's
that?
generation planning. We look
Generation
out
planning.
20 years in the future. Of course, demand growth is a part of that.
I would think so.
It is, yes, sir.
And well, that actually answers my next question, because with the back and forth of questions, and when should you build, what should you use, what demand should you use? From Dominion and Santee Cooper's perspective, when should generation be permitted and constructed? At the time of need or before the need?
It's got to be the time before need. And once again, you got to use your best forecasting in order to be able to do that. We have folks that do that. And that's one where you can't be wrong. You can't be wrong. And so that's very important. Our forecast doesn't include any data centers in it. It includes growth, and it includes projections across the residential, commercial, and industrial. But if we don't have a signed contract, we don't put it in our plan going forward.
So from the IRP perspective, which only requires 15 years for us, I think 20, for you guys, and 20 for Santee Cooper.
Yes, sir.
From Dominion's perspective, from a needed generation, projecting what generation is needed, which I assume has to be linked to demand growth. Y'all look 20 years out.
Yes, sir. And it changes. I mean, who'd have thought that we'd have 1,200 megawatts of solar on our system 10 years ago? But we do now. Did that change the course of what we do? It sure did. We came up with our peaking modernization project, where we have these peakers on the system where they can work with it. It also had a determining factor on what we wanted to build as far as these units and how we operate them, high capacity units like this, because you got to pair it with solar. And that's important. We have one solar facility that has batteries. They've proved to be very valuable to us and given us 66 megawatts on these cold winter mornings when solar isn't producing squat. And so that really works to our advantage. And, could we have other third parties that do it? Yeah. If VC Summer had anything, it was the struggle for capital within our company that allowed 1,200 megawatts of third-party solar to be built on our system that didn't involve any ratepayer dollars. It was a godsend. It was third-party developers that came in and built that and put the batteries with it, and it's worked so well. I hope it continues.
Because it was third party, if it was owner-owned, you had to put the money and pay for the owner-owned solar and batteries, correct?
I mean, they had to pay their way. I mean, they had to pay the interconnection. They had to pay, forward-looking, and for us to even study it. They had to pay for us to study it. And so that's a difference, and that's been a great resource on our system. I will not deny it. It gives us challenges sometimes when as far as non-dispatchable it is, but it's a great resource. It underscores that the all-above energy strategy works from that perspective, and this unit is just another part of it.
Understand. A couple more questions. Go ahead, please.
No, go ahead.
No. You were going to answer. I don't want to.
Obviously, we continue to grow as well, and this commission, when in our IRP process, encouraged Santee Cooper to consider economic development as we developed our IRP, so that we could, as Mr. Kassam mentioned, you've got to do it in advance. You can't wait in order to meet the needs, and the same thing holds true. And so, in our IRP process, we developed a process where we do statistical analysis to determine how much load is actually coming, which is not significantly different than what we do with our commercial and residential customers. Only in this instance, we've had discussions generally with those economic development opportunities. And we do a statistical analysis. Our load forecast includes an amount, it's about 800 megawatts, but that was developed considering about 4,000 megawatts of potential capacity on the system. So we're not just including everything that comes our way. But in order for us to continue to be a resource for the state for economic development purposes, I think we've done a fair job of forecasting the load coming up on our system.
A couple more questions, and I think I'm through. Earlier, there was some talk back and forth also about the coal facilities, coal plants. And I think 3 coal, the names weren't mentioned that I recall, but 3 coal facilities were I guess mentioned. And are those coal plants base load plants currently?
Well, Mr. Walker, he has schooled me through the years that the only base load unit we have on our system is VC Summer Station.
Okay.
It's the base load. All the others we run at varying capacities to meet load. And let me just be clear. We have 2 units at Wateree, okay, 342 megawatts. We have A.M. Williams down in Berkeley County, about 600 megawatts. And then we have Cope, about 315 megawatts over in Orangeburg County. It's a boiler, okay, so it's a big box with tubes in it, and it can run off natural gas. John Warren, CEO of SCANA at the time, had the foresight to run that pipeline in there to that plant. And it has proven to be a very wise choice a long time ago, as Commissioner Britt said. Make that decision. Everybody said, oh, it'll never use natural gas. It uses natural gas now all the time, so long as natural gas is available. And if my good friends from CGT that are here can work things out, we'd like to have it permanently on natural gas, firm natural gas, because right now it's just interruptible, so we use release capacity to fire it. And so we'd like to firm it up on natural gas, and then those other 3 units, those would be subject to evaluation as we move forward.
This is not pertinent with this at all, but one of my early summer jobs in college was going in one of those boilers and routing out the tubes, and I knew what I didn't want to do when I grew up.
You know what work is, because it ain't never hot. It's always too hot or always too cold when you're inside that boiler. Yeah, know how to climb some scaffolding too.
Finally, does Dominion intend to operate or Santee Cooper its coal facilities until they're not economically feasible to operate?
It'll be a combination of age. Like I said, 1971, 73, so mark that down. It's getting some age on it. It'll be about what federal mandates come down, get taken back, or come down again, and the costs associated with those, and just the overall life of those units. So, but you know what? Like I said before, all of that is secondary based upon an obligation to serve. And I can assure you this past winter, those coal units, they were putting out. And if it hadn't been for those 3 aforementioned coal units, they get beat up a lot. But nobody complained about them when they were flipping on the light switch and bumping that thermostat down to stay warm, and we went through the winter that we went through. And so that's how you got to look at it from that standpoint, in transparency. So I'm not going to give anybody on a false hope that we will retire them, but I can tell you one thing we're going to do is make sure we have the necessary generating assets to serve the people of South Carolina as needed.
We have 8 coal units on our system, 3,600 megawatts. The oldest of those, again, similar vintage to what Mr. Kassan was talking about. And so we are, right now, we have in our IRP the plan to retire that in 2035. But our largest facility, quite frankly, is relatively young. And so I agree with Mr. Kassan. That one is not going to be based on age. That's going to be based more on policy. But we've made a similar commitment, and Santee Cooper has stood by it. We will not close a coal resource until we have something that replaces it, adequately replaces it. And without this facility, there's not a chance that happens. And the other thing I would mention, similar to what Mr. Kassam said, this past winter, without those, Santee Cooper set a new peak after having set 7 of them last year. We set a new peak that was 200 megawatts higher. There's no way we would have been able to achieve that if those coal plants weren't operating at their peak levels.
And that was a winter peak?
Pardon?
What did you say, that was a winter peak?
Yeah, it's newest. Yep, our newest peak. It's our eighth peak in the last 14 months, 15 months.
You said 200 megawatts? Did you say 200 megawatts?
200 megawatts. Yep, enough to fuel about 150,000 homes.
All right. Thank you, and no more questions, sir.
First, I think Commissioner Britt has a couple of questions, then we'll go to Commissioner Whitfield.
And these two are very quick. Mr. Staten, you mentioned, I think when you were talking about the 7 miles of new right-of-way that would have to be constructed, we had some testimony that I think 2 people gave during the course of these public hearings. One gentleman said the right-of-way was going to be 300 feet wide. What is the width? Is that correct?
Honestly, I think that's a better question for the specific for some of the team, Mr. Randall and others.
Okay.
But that's probably not. It sounds a bit larger than what I
Commissioner
than what I'm
Britt, they are.
expected.
I can answer it. They're asking for survey permission for 300 foot wide to go in and survey.
Okay.
To go in and say, all right, what are here? What's going to be here? Have conversations with those landowners to get it down to a 50-foot right-of-way once it is put in service. So 300 on the survey, 50 from a construction putting it in service.
Right.
I think that's where the confusion's coming, because I thought I'd read the testimony was 50 feet, 50-foot right-of-way.
You're right.
The next question, this is, either one of y'all can handle this. How many counties actually make up the Ace Basin?
Well, if you go from Miss Mixon's map, a good many.
6 or 7 or
I would say
3
in
or
that
4?
one, I probably saw about 7 counties in that one. Yes, sir.
And the last is not a question, but it's a comment, because both y'all, in response to the question from Commissioner Caston about the coal-fired plants, the chairman and vice chairman and I were up in Nehru in February, and the chairwoman of FERC was making a presentation. She filled this auditorium. I don't know if y'all were there, but there were at least 2,000 people in the auditorium listening to her speak. And one thing that rang out to me, she said, we do not want any generation coming offline, whether it's coal, natural gas, hydro, nuclear. We have got to keep it. We have such an energy demand right now across the United States. We can't afford to lose one piece of generation. So I think I would follow her lead right now and don't worry about retiring those things as soon as possible, unless she's got more information than maybe we have.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Britt. Finally, Commissioner Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, and good to have you both of you with us, and thank you for your testimony and answers to questions so far. Mr. Staten, in my previous service, I didn't have the pleasure of having a Santee Cooper witness up here ever, so I'll pick on you a little bit first, but I'll have questions for both of you. Okay. Mr. Staten, first, before I forget it, not really germane to this proceeding, but would it surprise, you've mentioned this number twice today, so I thought I would bring it out. Would it surprise you to learn that I heard at Nehru from a Georgia Power official who was heavily involved that the actual all-in cost of Vogel, including finance cost to all the partners, was only $32 billion instead of 38.
I appreciate that was their comment on it. I don't know if that was the recoverable amount or if that was the total amount, but
okay. Well, I did hear that. Again, not germane to this
Right.
proceeding, but
Appreciate that.
since it's come up twice today, I thought I would ask you if you found that surprising. Secondly, a couple other questions for you, Mr. Staten. Ms. Mixon had on the slide this morning, and you were asked by several interveners, but I believe it was Ms. Mixon that had this on the slide about the August 2024 when you testified. I think maybe both of you testified before a Senate panel, and you were talking about the cost, and then there's been a lot of back and forth about the cost going from 2.5 billion to 5 billion. Weren't you originally back then seeking to build a lot lower megawatts than we are here, than you're asking for in this application of 2180?
No, generally we were in this ballpark, and we're still in the 2,000 megawatt
okay,
range.
so it was over 2,000.
It was.
Okay, I was thinking the megawatts. I've got some configuration questions where Commissioner Caston kind of went there a little bit ago, but I think I might save that for another panel. I think you kind of sort of deflected those, but it gets into the configuration, you know, the one by ones versus some of the answers that Mr. Sam gave. So I'll probably save that one for another panel. I guess another question none of us have, here we are with a huge matter before us, huge application, a generational decision, 36 years potentially life of this facility. So none of us have a crystal ball. But what I do have, this is the Duke CC 750 megawatt CC from years ago. We do know that it cost a little over $1 billion, about 1.1 billion. It was built in about 3 years. So we got a known and measurable here. And I know that's been, well, at least started over a decade ago. So what I would ask you, and I know we all have to be prepared, you both have to be prepared for weather events, hurricanes, and so forth. In your preparation for this being your choice and not having that crystal ball to be able to see in the future, all of us wish we had that way back when, but not having that, what if some of these things don't go as planned? And what if this cost does crawl up on you? I know Act 41 requires that you have the monitor for a project of this size in utility facility siting matter. I know the aforementioned other backstops, if you will, that Mr. Sam mentioned, but what, again, we're not in a rate case today, but one day there will be a rate case. And one day there will be an accounting for this. And what do you, if where Commissioner Williams was going, if this did become a stranded asset, how would you all envision who would bear that burden, if not the ratepayers? I mean, of course, in Mr. Kassam's case, you got shareholders. In your case, you got taxpayers. So could you all touch on that a little bit and what your thoughts might be about cost overruns? And I thought I was going to hear some of the answer in the original megawatts being a little bit. Now, you did state that the turbines price, the availability and the procurement of those, the time has gone up on that. I realize that costs. You also had mentioned, I think your answer, Mr. Staten, was supply chain issues. But again, with what we can control, what are your thoughts on that if things don't go as planned?
We continue, I mean, the process that we're undertaking, including our IRP process, is a dynamic process. And so we are continually planning. The same thing here. As I mentioned earlier, one of the ways we're seeking to mitigate is because there are risks. There are risks with this project. We've locked in the equipment. the lion's share of the equipment risks. The next risk is going to be the labor costs and the EPC, and we've already issued an RFP to be able to manage that. So we should know then, by later on this year, generally within 10%, we should have the costs pretty well known as to what this is. If those costs are escalating beyond a point where this is still the best resource, then we will have to address that as part of our ongoing planning process, and we would seek to do that. But the timeframes for building any level of capacity like this are going to be extended. And so we are going to continue down this path and be as transparent as we can with this commission, with the legislature, with our board as to where these costs are going. And if we have to make adjustments, we'll make adjustments at that time. I do want to indicate though, with Santee Cooper, it's not the taxpayers of South Carolina that pay our prices. It is our direct customers are the ones that pay those prices, and so we are very cognizant of the impact that these rates will have on those customers.
I certainly respect that. I just meant you didn't have shareholders to be accountable to.
I do not have, and I don't have shareholders, and that is both a blessing and a curse sometimes. The curse part about it is we don't have the ability to go out and issue more equity in order to complete a project, and so that our customers, we will be borrowing and we will be taking cash that we can bring to the table in order to fund this project. So we're going to be very thoughtful about it throughout the entire planning process. More importantly, again, we've built some risk into this project already based on what we think the actual costs are going to be, and that those are included in that $5 billion number.
Got a follow-up to that, but anything to add, Mr. Kassam?
Well, I think we're going to have enough eyes looking on this. We talked about that earlier. I think it'll be the General Assembly. I think it'll be this commission. I think it'll be PERC. And I think that, everybody will be able to see it, sense it, feel it.
Don't forget ORS.
And Office of Regulatory Staff for sure. I mentioned them earlier and their oversight. And I think at that particular point, if it's not going well, you pull the plug sooner rather than later. You sell the components of the power block and make good money off of them. And then the utilities go back and they brush up on their load shedding programs, because that's what you're going to have in South Carolina in the middle of the winter.
Well, thank you. I asked both of you, I guess, kind of a negative leading question. Now let me turn it and ask it in a positive way. What, or do you see any potential, Mr. Staten, and I go to you first because you mentioned the supply chain and the amount of time to procure a turbine even if you order now. Is there do you see any possibilities? We all know costs don't come down, but are there any obstacles, if you will, time or otherwise, any other resources that you see that might, supply chain, whatever, that might cause you to not go over where you are, either, Lord forbid, come down even some. Not Lord forbid, Lord happen.
Would obviously would love to see that happen to the extent that we can continue to stay on track, to the extent that the EPC costs come in below where we are expecting them to, the opportunity or the ability to attract labor at a reasonable cost to the facility, and quite frankly, because we've built in risk. If we don't experience that risk, if those costs don't continue to climb, for instance, I believe there's a possibility, but I want to express very carefully here. There is always a possibility that these costs could be less than $5 billion. Do I see them coming down dramatically because of some massive change in labor markets? Quite frankly, I don't I don't see that. So I think I think this is a reasoned number with the information we have available to us today, and we're going to keep that updated so that folks are aware of it. And if it comes down, you can trust we're going to be standing up and crowing about the fact that the costs have come down.
Well,
So,
at least you said the word possibility.
yep.
Anything?
I just point to the two pictures we showed. You saw Rainy, you saw Jasper. I mean, those are units that we built. We built them on time. We built them on budget. And I think that it is not new technology. It's something we're very familiar with. We operate it every day. We have constructed it. It's not going to be engineered on the fly as we go. There's not going to be, I don't think there's going to be a bunch of federal changes that are going to come to change the mechanics of how the design is. And so I think it's something that is very, we're able to build.
Thank you. One or two more for you, and I'll wrap it up. This may be more for you, Mr. Kassam. The transmission assets that were built for VC Summer years ago, the 230 kV lines, the one that's 39 miles long, it runs through Fairfield over to serve the load in Northeast Columbia, and then the St. George line, I believe, is 101 miles long. Those two lines, those have been in rate base. They were and always have been. And the ratepayers have been, those have been used and useful now for years, gone through many hurricane seasons. What benefit would those be for this Kennedy's project, Mr. Kassam? And I heard you talk about and you showed very well on your video that, as you call it, the intersection of the four transportation lines. Could you discuss what benefits those 230 kV lines would be for this project?
Yeah, you're all over it, Commissioner Whitfield, as you well know. Those 230 kV lines that are built with those steel structures, self-supporting, can withstand 175 mile per hour wind, can withstand ice loading on them. They aren't going anywhere. They were a big reason why Scout Motors came in there and looked at that facility and said, I think if we're going to build a production assembly line here, those will provide us with reliable service. And we were able to produce for them the reliability of that. And you hit the nail on the head with the fact that they start at VC Summer. They go over to what we call Killian, go through Winsburn and over to Killian. And then they come down and they go to a switching station, so Little River Sub behind Lexington Hospital. They move on down and they go to another fold-in that we have by the Husqvarna plant down in Orangeburg off of Highway 33. Head down 301, come out at St. George where we have a switching station there. And when we went in and we did the N+2 calculations that Mr. Parker knows much, much more about than I do, about generation and transmission, they said, hey, if you're retiring Kennedy's, you need to take this transmission into that Kennedy switch yard. And if you look at that picture, you'll see that it comes right into that Kennedy switch yard. So it comes directly into this facility, and this facility will be able to dump power to what is considered, at least from Dominion Energy South Carolina's perspective, the backbone of transmission across South Carolina. And it makes it so, I don't know about all this virtual stuff, but it makes it where those electrons can flow anywhere in the state coming out of this facility, which is why it makes that intersection so well. The other part of that line comes out of that switching station, and it heads to Somerville to serve load down there in Charleston. It goes to where Commissioner Britt was talking about these counties that are growing so. Well, guess what? That was a great approval by this Public Service Commission to put those into rate base, because they certainly have served South Carolina. It might be 4,000 jobs worth up at Scout Motors as a result of it too. So outstanding job on that one. And yes, sir, they're there, and it makes this project all the more viable.
Thank you. That's mostly a Dominion question, Mr. Staton, but anything you want to add about the intersection of all the transmission lines there?
No,
I was quizzing him about the other 230s, but if you want to say anything about that, certainly.
Obviously, the location here is important to us, both from a transmission perspective, but also to ensure that we are optimizing the transmission system with the location of the loads on the system. And so this location is perfect for us. We have transmission in the area. We will continue to analyze the need for additional transmission, but the location of this site is incredibly important for the overall integrity of the transmission system.
Thank you. And lastly, an environmental question of which this commission really doesn't have any authority, and that's the pipeline. That's FERC jurisdiction. I recall from the night hearing, and I believe both of you were there. I know your teams were, and I think both of you individually were there as well. And of course, I keep a record of all individual testimony and take it to heart what every citizen says. And all of them did. All their pleas registered with me, but one in particular, certainly not an impoverished man, but he described his land. I think of Mr. Morrison, talked about how the pipeline would cut across his land. And I guess my question to you, while this is more across the northern point, as you pointed out from Ms. Mixon's map in the Ace Basin, still we're crossing, as you said, it went under the Savannah River. You got to cross the South Edisto and I guess the North Edisto. So you got a lot of, and then a lot of other creeks and estuaries and a lot of other part of our lowlands, wetlands that this pipe will be north of or above. So I guess I too am concerned about the environment, not also in the basin, but all the way down the basin. You got saltwater and marine life down there in the Edisto area, and fish, shrimp, all of those things. And of course, you know, in the event you really would, one of these would have to have, sadly, something, hopefully we never do, something, an incident with the pipeline, generally man-made in nature. But what about that or any other environmental impacts from PM, particulate matter, or anything that might not only affect the immediate area near Kennedy's, but also downstream as it goes out to the coast?
Yeah, I was at that night hearing, and I thought Mr. Morrison was a very effective witness. He also indicated that he manages timber for a lot of different people that aren't in South Carolina. And his big concern was the pipeline coming through there and him going to harvest timber with the skidders and the cutters and everything that, and the timber cats that go in there, and having to cross over it, having to give notice, having to go down there and, you know, put mats across it and things of that nature. That was his concern in that regard. And that's something that's going to have to be worked out with him and those individual landowners. Can you put it deeper? When you come through there, instead of putting it 3.5, 4 feet in the ground, could you put it 8 feet in the ground? There are probably some peanut farmers out there that have to go and dig peanuts on ag land that, you know, probably want it deeper in theirs, because when you get out there and start digging peanuts, you get down there deeper than you are when it's cotton or corn or wheat or soybeans. So I think those are things that are going to have to be worked out. But I heard him from that perspective, and yeah, that's something that needs to be worked out. You know, Carolina Gas Transmission, they've got a line that runs right through here. We've got transmission that runs through here. They've been a great steward of the environment, and they've been a safe operator down there. So just because you're bringing a utility through an area doesn't mean that there's going to be a degradation from an environmental standpoint, provided they're good stewards of the environment and they're conscious about the people who live there. I'll take another reverend who was at one of the night hearings we had here in Columbia. He lives close to the site, and he's concerned about it from the standpoint that, well, they told me that my land was going to be impacted, my family's land was going to be impacted, and I went to the meeting and they said, well, no, it's not going to be impacted. We can't find you on the map. So with each one of those people, what it takes, in my opinion, is a face-to-face. Now, I'm not allowed to be the spokesperson for Kinder Morgan, but I've gone and met with some of the property owners down there. I've met with some of the heirs' property, and all of those have been at the request of county council. And I've found those people to be receptive. I've walked some of the right-of-way with those people. I've walked on some of Mr. Staten's transmission that's there. I've walked off and marked off the 50 feet from the transmission with these individual property owners just to give them that. Why? Because somebody asked me to do it. forget about the regulatory aspects of you can't speak for Kinder Morgan. Well, I can go talk to anybody in South Carolina that requests I go there, and certainly county council. And I will endeavor to continue to do that as I am asked. And so those are just things that I had a meeting this past week with property owners down there that came to me and made some recommendations that I've carried forward and passed on to Kinder Morgan. And Mr. Randall, he took copious notes from all of these night hearings and passed it on to Kinder Morgan so they could be aware, hey, you coming into South Carolina, you coming through this, you better be attuned to the people that are there. You better show up, you better eyeball to eyeball them, and you better listen to what they have to say, and to the best of your ability, accommodate them. Now, we're not going to be able to accommodate everybody by any means, but at the same time, to listen and have empathy is going to be very important from that perspective. And you can always find somebody that you can, maybe they don't want money for that easement that they can. The good thing about a pipeline is you can continue to use your property. It's not like it's going to have a structure on top of it. You can continue to plant, you can still to sow, you can still continue to do whatever on it. But I think it's important that you gotta, it might seem, we might sit here and say 71 miles, but there's an individual property owner along every foot of it, and you need to be attuned to what they have to say and to their needs to the best of your ability.
Well, I appreciate it, Mr. Kassam. I grow a few peanuts too, so I appreciate your comments.
Yes, sir.
The only thing I would add, because I agree completely with Mr. Kassam, is the FERC has an intensive process as well. The FERC is a lead agency in looking at the environmental impacts of any interstate natural gas pipeline that gets built in any place in the United States, and so they will be making those same considerations as they approve the route for this pipeline. And they do have mitigation requirements. They also have the opportunity to require more directional drilling in order, you mentioned the wetlands and the other areas like that, to be able to not have to put mats in those areas, but to drill underneath them. And they've got incredible technologies to be able to make that happen. So there, at the FERC process, many of these same considerations will be undertaken before a final route is approved. And so again, I think there's adequate opportunity to demonstrate that we are going to have the protections, the environmental protections in place for that individual pipeline. And again, having run an interstate natural gas pipeline, we don't want to have to go through challenging processes. We've gotten better as an industry, or the pipeline industry has gotten better at managing landowner relations. But here in South Carolina, I don't think there's anyone that understands it better than we do. And we will continue to work with them to ensure that they do the right things. And again, I think they're intent on doing that. So
Thank you, Mr. Staten, and thank you both for your answer. Thank you for also appearing at these night hearings. As you know, it's our duty up here to treat every person before us with dignity and respect. But unfortunately, we can't talk to them about the case. So I applaud you for Mr. Kassam, Mr. Staten, and your team for reaching out to citizens and continuing to do so to the greatest extent you can, and to try to, as Mr. Kassam said, have a face-to-face with them, talk with them, communicate with them, and hear and try to rectify their concerns, resolve their concerns as best you can. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitfield. Getting toward the end here. Just a couple of things, comments and questions. Who would be best to talk about environmental mitigation? You mentioned somebody who would be on a panel would be best to get into some of that.
Mr. Bass.
Mr. Bass. Yep, Mr. Bass.
Okay. We heard a lot about cost and uncertainties. And I think at some point, Mr. Kassam, you said something about the EPA restrictions being stricter now than in the past. Doesn't that seem to go back and forth depending on the administration?
Mr. Chairman, that was exactly the point that I was trying to make in that regard. With what came out of past administrations with coal units, affluent limit guidelines. Just, I mean, you have to go into detail. It's just basically got to build a municipal water system in the middle of your power plant to point treat, you know, what comes out of your boiler and your scrubber. And so those things change, and then they'll change again. The greenhouse gas emissions, they change again. So they've pulled back on it. That impacts, you know, the coal retirement scenario. But natural gas is a safe bet when it comes to that from the standpoint of what we're proposing at this time.
So there's a political effect that can as to uncertainty and as to cost.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
On
Yes,
the
sir.
national level. more
Yes, sir.
than State level.
Yes, sir.
All right. One thing that I noticed too, and you know, I am impressed that you can almost quote some of these citizens who spoke at the public hearings. You must have really studied it well as listening in. But there was some a couple of times it was raised about fines and penalties alleged to have occurred both by both companies and particularly at the Kennedy's plant when it was a coal operation. Is anyone who would be best to address that if we got into some question about that?
I look at my cast of witnesses, and I don't want to put that on anyone. I would say that, you know, that's a public record, as Mr. Staten said. I doubt that there's an industry out there that hasn't had censure or fine associated with from an environmental standpoint. And so that's a matter of public record that I think could be gleaned. But, you know, I know a lot of folks, they may go and grab something from Virginia. There was one person that actually had one out there that had to do with a former company of ours that wasn't our company at that time. So you just got to be careful from a time sequence standpoint that you're gathering something and you know what it is. Yeah, I've negotiated back and forth with the Department of Environmental Services, but the important thing is, Mr. Chairman, be very transparent. Report things immediately. We know when we're supposed to sample test things. And in our company, we have what is called a reportable environmental event. And you pull the brake on the train and you stop. And you get corporate environmental involved. And you go in and you have what they call a 15-minute conference call to pull in and say, all right, what happened? What's going on? What agencies do we have to confer with? Who do we have to report to? That's that culture of compliance that I talked about. Now, you can go back and you can look at all historical artifacts that you want to on fines paid and things of that nature. It used to be a different era. It's not that way anymore. And so that culture of compliance is something that resonates through our company. It is a part of my expectations as a leader here in South Carolina, and it's something that we take very, very seriously. So much so that, you know, up at the lake, our lake management people, you wouldn't think, but they go in and they might be loading a forklift, and they even have a small little sheen with a hydraulic fitting at a boat landing. Time out, stop. My attention, Miss Iris Griffin's attention, and you get to the bottom of it. And that culture of compliance is what you really want. And I assure you here today, we do have a culture of compliance when it comes to environmental.
Well,
If I could.
yes, sir, go ahead.
Behalf of Santee Cooper, I would say the same thing. We have a strong culture of compliance, and I would like to tell you that everything is always perfect, that equipment never fails, that people don't make mistakes. Those things happen. The culture of compliance is that you do, as Mr. Kassam just said, you report it, you halt, you fix it. You reincorporate that into your programs so that you get better and better and better. But again, we can't always stop something from happening, particularly in something like this, where we are very heavily regulated in many, many different areas. But we continue to bring more focus, more technology to the table to ensure that culture of compliance remains strong.
Oh, if things were perfect, I'd be on my private island drinking a margarita right now.
I understand.
But it's I know it's public record, but it was brought into this case now by that, and I think there was some interest in that. The other thing that struck me, and I want to make this point. When I asked at the Charleston thing, raise your hand who has moved to South Carolina, the majority of the hands were raised. I did not ask that as if I were trying to insult or intimidate those people in any way, but some of us have been here for a long time, long time. In fact, you talk about this 1971 plan. I was in college when that plan was started, so
Yes, sir.
Maybe it's not that old. How does the size of this plant compare to sizes nationally now, or who could answer that as far as?
Well, I think one thing we pointed out, Mr. Chairman, is this plant is 2,198 megawatts, thereabouts, and 1,000 of that is coming to Dominion Energy, South Carolina. There's about, and the other 1,000 is going to go to Mr. Staten. So, if you want to make a comparison, I mean, Jasper, 1,000 megawatts, Columbia Energy Center, 640 megawatts, VC Summer, 1,000 megawatts. He gets a third, I get 2/3, 660, 330.
Well, I mean, they talk about it being so huge, but it sounds like to me it's in line with the other
It
facilities.
is. That is correct.
It
And that's the
absolutely.
point I was trying to make with you, sir. There are bigger gas plants in the southeast, but it is what the output we're going to get for this is right in line with other facilities that we have, that we operate, that have been approved by this commission prior from that perspective. So, yes, sir, we're right on track with that.
Okay. The only other thing I have, I wondered about, what authority, I looked at that 41, the cost. What authority do we have to cap the cost? I know we have limited authority over Santee, Cooper. You answer different things. I know if you came in with a rate case and we thought your costs weren't prudent, that we could somehow deal with that. But as far as the citing case, what authority does this commission have as to all this talk about cost? And we can't cap it, can we?
I'm going to step out here and say, no, sir, I don't think that authority is vested at this commission until after the fact. And we come in here for a rate case. If I hadn't done what I'm supposed to do, if Mr. Staten hadn't done what he's supposed to do, or Mr. Fennessy, and we hadn't explained it as we went along, then guess what? We deserve for you to take it out of our hide. And that's what ought to happen. And so that's how it's always worked. And it worked well. So I think this is just pretty straightforward. This is about citing. Is it necessary? Does it meet the public convenience standard? That's what we're here to talk about today. People try to throw the cost in there, and they want to take you on a trip down memory lane to units 2 and 3 at VC Summer, and that's a departure from why we're here today. We're here to establish does South Carolina need this facility, and our team is going to try to present that testimony to you so a proper decision can be made for the future of South Carolina. And then we'll be right back in here again, rate case after rate case. As we go through the construction, we'll be back in here, and y'all will have to look at the log at that time to look at those costs. And if they were prudent, fine. If not, kick them out.
So the cost is not the issue today.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Right.
You are exactly right.
The only other comment I want to make was that I was on the Coastal Council from 1985 and its successor, the Coastal Resource Management, until 2003 or 2005 sometimes. So I was there when the ACE Basin was created. And I'm not so much concerned with fines and penalties. I just wondered what effect at that time did the coal plant have on the Edisto or on the ACE Basin, because it seems to me that, it's hard to remember, but would we have been creating the ACE Basin with a coal plant next door if it were a problem?
Yes, sir. That's what I tried to say. You said I memorized some of their testimony, and I did. And sitting up here and listening to the folks down there in Charleston with the Climate Council, I was somewhat distracted by the vase they had. It looked like it had Easter eggs in it, but I think that's where the microphone was that they were speaking into. But I listened intently. And what I heard all of them say was ACE Basin, ACE Basin, ACE Basin. If you did a word search on it, that's all they talked about. And they talked about how beautiful it was. And I agree with that. I don't want it to be disturbed. It's wonderful. I fished there. My daddy taught me how to catch shellcracker in the Edisto River when I was 5 years old in a John boat. We put in at Orangeburg Gardens. And, you know, I don't want it to be disturbed. I don't want it to be. But what I tried to say is when they raised their hand, and I knew what you were doing, Mr. Chairman, when you said how many of y'all, you know, here from South Carolina originally and or not, and a bunch of hands went up. And some people might have taken offense to it, but welcome to our world. And so with what gets misconstrued with what you say, but the thing of it is I heard them extol the beauty of the Ace Basin. I heard people talk about journaling in it, and it's so beautiful sometimes I quit journaling. I park my car and I go walking for 6 hours down there in that regard. I heard another one talk about the oysters they get down at the Edisto, and they eat them oysters. We heard that woman talk about the oysters. That was in Walterboro. And, you know, if there was a detrimental impact coming from that coal plant, I don't know if these people who weren't even here when that coal plant was operational would even know that a coal plant was there because they're so carried away with the scenic natural beauty of the Ace Basin. And I am too. And I don't want it to be disturbed. And I don't want this plant to disturb in any way the Ace Basin. I don't want it to disturb anything off the site of that 190-foot footprint that is sitting on.
Well,
190 acre,
And
not
I-
foot.
and I-
Sorry about that.
I think that's
It
the
matters.
number one thing.
But I think that's important, and I think you hit the nail on the head with that, and that's how I feel about it.
Well, and I feel the same way. This plant cannot affect the Ace Basin.
Yeah, I
Cannot.
won't still be working here when that plant comes online. But I got a vested interest to make sure that it carries on and that it is built and it is constructed, because I can't leave it for these folks to have to sit there and do something because I didn't have the courage to come in here and try to get it done. And at the same time, to put something there that is environmentally pleasing or doesn't hurt that precious Ace Basin, because that's where I'm going to be spending some of my retirement time.
Well, this whole commission feels the same way as far as the responsibility. We have that responsibility too to protect it. Now, by the time it gets done, I may be too old to know what's going on, but we really, I think we really, in ORS, I think everybody's going to hold you to that.
Yes, sir.
The other plants that you showed in the pictures, some of those were air cooled, some were water cooled. Is that
Those are all water cooled.
All water cooled.
all water cooled?
Yes, sir.
So this is going to be air. This is a big difference in this plant compared to what we've had in the past.
Yes, sir. Not for us and corporately at Dominion, no, sir. But yes, sir, as it relates to South Carolina, it's a game changer from how we cool it.
Okay. Can any of those plants in the future be converted to air cool or changes, or is that something that's beyond?
That would be for my expert, Mr. Walker. He could
Okay.
answer that question.
All right. Well, thank you both, gentlemen. Appreciate your time. We put you through it all day. Is any redirect, Mr. Burgess? I hope not.
My mama didn't raise no fool, no redirect.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Vice Chair.
just before we let the panel go, I just want to reiterate how much I appreciate the transparency and the straightforward nature of the answer to the questions. I even know that there's some place other than here that you would like to be today. And I appreciate that because what that tells me is that even though some of these questions may be a little pointed or difficult coming from the bench and coming from the parties, quite frankly, as they should be, you're standing in the box and taking that hard inside fastball without complaint. And I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Vice Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Let's take about a 10 to 12 minute. Let's take a break until 10 after 4, and then we'll go to the next panel. Mr. Knapp, if you want to go, you can go.
How did you know what I was going to ask?
I can see it in your face. We're in recess till 4:10. Good afternoon again. We are still in the case, docket number 2025-323E. The companies are presenting their case, and we have a new panel. Mr. Cooper, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, the joint applicants call Mr. James Neely and Mr. Franklin Clay Settle to the stand.
Mr. Neely, if you'll raise your right hand, please. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Settle, if you'll raise your right hand. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll start with Mr. Neely and then go to Mr. Settle. Mr. Neely, please state your name and business address for the record.
My name is James Neely, and my business address is 220 Operation Way, Casey, South Carolina, 29033.
And by whom are you employed in what capacity?
I'm employed by Dominion Energy Services, Inc. as an energy market strategic advisor in the Resource Planning Department for Dominion Energy, South Carolina.
And did you prepare or cause to be prepared under your supervision direct testimony consisting of 27 pages that was previously filed with the Commission on December 15, 2025 in this docket?
Yes.
Do you have any changes or additions to your pre-filed direct testimony?
Yes. Page 1, line 3, change the word operations to operation. And then on page 6, lines 17 and 18, change the year 2024 to 2023.
And other than that, if I asked you the same questions here today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Chairman Powers, at this time, I move that Mr. Neely's pre-filed direct testimony be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
The pre-filed direct testimony, Mr. Neely, as just corrected, will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Neely, have you prepared a summary of your direct testimony?
Yes.
Okay. Would you please deliver your summary of your direct at this time?
Good afternoon, Chairman Powers and members of the Commission. My name is James Neely, and I'm employed by Dominion Energy Services as an energy market strategic advisor in the Resource Planning Department for Dominion Energy, South Carolina. DESC first identified the need for new natural gas generation in its 2020 IRP. Beginning with the 23 IRP, DESC has repeatedly modeled the economics of Kennedy's joint resource against renewable generation resources, aeroderivative natural gas units, simple cycle combustion turbines, and multiple configurations of natural gas combined cycle units. The findings of the 2022 coal plants retirement study, the 23 IRP and the 24 IRP update, and the 25 IRP update all support the need for a new large natural gas-fired resource like Kennedy's. In response, DESC developed a proposal to build the Kennedy's joint resource as a multi-unit natural gas-fired advanced class combined cycle generating plant to be co-owned with Santee Cooper. To show the contribution of the Kennedy's joint resources to system economy and reliability, the company used its Plexos modeling software to determine the optimal configuration of the generation system with or without the Kennedy's joint resource, which it modeled in its 1,098 megawatt winter rating configuration. Plexos compared the Kennedy's joint resource against a full range of 15 alternative generating technologies and confirmation and configurations of technologies, including battery, solar, offshore wind, and other thermal resources. The modeling shows that the Kennedy's joint resource contributes to system economy, specifically lower cost to customers and reliability in the reference scenarios, which reflect the most likely future conditions, and in multiple alternative scenarios, evaluating the effects of changes in fuel costs, load growth, and environmental requirements. The modeling showed the Kennedy's joint resource to be the least cost generation asset in all cases where the model was allowed to choose it. The EPA has announced the recession of the greenhouse gas rules effective on April 20th, 26. In this case, DESC modeled 6 bill plan scenarios, including the reference bill plan without the greenhouse gas rules, the reference bill plan with the greenhouse gas rules, the high load forecast without the greenhouse gas rules, the high fossil fuels bill plan without the greenhouse gas rules, the high renewables bill plan without the greenhouse gas rules, and a 20% capital cost adder bill plan without the greenhouse gas rules. The bill plans call for the Kennedy's joint resource to be added in 2033 with or without the greenhouse gas rule. The bill plans were modeled based on scenarios that assess how bill plans might vary under other sets of market conditions. The high load forecast bill plan measures the effect on cost and CO2 emissions in a high load forecast scenario. The high fossil fuels bill plan assumes high fossil fuel cost. The high renewables bill plan measures the effect on cost and CO2 emissions in a scenario where thermal units are only selected to support the integration of renewable technologies resources. Lastly, to test the sensitivity of the conclusion that the Kennedy's joint resource represents the most cost-effective generating capacity addition, DES modeled the 20% capital cost adder bill plan, assuming capital costs for all generation resources would be approximately 20% higher than assumed under the reference scenario assumptions. Additional modeling detail and assumptions regarding DESC planning reserve margin, ELCC values, capital, fuel, and transmission costs, and load forecast are described more fully in my direct testimony. The result of the modeling under the various scenarios shows that a resource or resources equivalent to DESC portion of the Kennedy's joint resource will be required to meet the planning reserve margin, system reliability, and customer economy. With the exception of the high renewable scenario that did not allow the Kennedy's joint resource to be a selectable resource, all other scenarios selected the Kennedy's joint resource. The cost of the high renewables bill plan was markedly higher than the others, although direct cost comparisons across scenarios is not recommended where there are material differences in assumptions between them. As consistently demonstrated through modeling in the IRPs, the IRP updates, and now in this application, the Kennedy's joint resource serves the interest of system economy, reliability, and efficiency compared to alternatives, and public convenience and necessity require that the construction of the Kennedy's resource be built. This concludes the summary of my direct testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Neely. Did you also prepare or cause to be prepared under your supervision rebuttal testimony consisting of 11 pages that was previously filed with the Commission on March 4, 2026 in this docket?
Yes.
Do you have any changes or additions to your pre-filed rebuttal testimony?
Yes. Page 1, line 3, change the word operations to operation.
And other than that one change, if I asked you the same questions here today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Chairman Powers, at this time, I move that Mr. Neely's pre-filed rebuttal testimony be entered into the record as given orally from the stand.
The pre-filed rebuttal testimony, Mr. Neely, as corrected, will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Neely, have you prepared a summary of your rebuttal testimony?
Yes.
Would you please deliver your summary at this time?
Our rebuttal testimony is limited to addressing certain portions of the direct testimony of witness Chelsea Holtling, which was submitted on behalf of CCL and SACE, and portions of the direct testimony of witness Lucy Metz, which was submitted on behalf of the Sierra Club. Specifically, I address witness Holtling's recommendations for a resource plan proposed as an alternate to the Kennedy Station. I also address witness Metz's comments about the adequacy of the DESC resource planning modeling and recommendation that DESC study battery energy storage and solar as an alternative to constructing the Kennedy Station. Regarding the direct testimony of witness Chelsea Holtling, she makes a number of concerning and infeasible recommendations, including that DESC convert the replacement frame type simple cycle unit Urquhart number 7, which has been designed and permitted as a simple cycle combustion turbine, into a 2-on-1 combined cycle shared by Santee Cooper and DESC, with approximately 311 megawatts of capacity provided to each utility. And DESC convert Williams Station from coal to natural gas, fueled by expanding an existing liquefied natural gas facility. Regarding the proposed conversion of Williams to natural gas, a DESC witness As desk witness Randall testifies, there is no firm transportation natural gas available at Williams Station in the volumes necessary to operate that unit at full output capacity. This means converting the unit to natural gas would cause Williams to be unavailable in the winter when capacity is most needed on the desk system. There are other issues created by assuming that a combined cycle at Urquhart would meet the needs of desk and Santee Cooper. There's not sufficient electric transmission to move power from a new resource at Urquhart to the area where it's needed on the system, let alone the Santee Cooper system. Importantly, Santee Cooper does not have the necessary legal authorization to participate in a joint resource at Urquhart with desk. Witness Hotling's alternative plan arbitrarily eliminates the bridge project, which eliminates the benefits associated with the planned pipeline, including connection to the Kennedy site and access to additional firm natural gas supplies for other customers in the area to support economic and sustain economic development there. Witness Hotling's alternative plan requires building resources at Urquhart, Aiken, Charleston, and Georgetown, rather than one combined cycle project at Kennedy's. Her plan includes 5 diverse projects that are no way less risky than building at Kennedy's. Finally, contrary to Witness Hotling's suggestion, DESC has adequately compared the Kennedy's joint resource to other generation options in terms of cost, reliability, fuel cost, and availability through DESC IRPs and modeling conducted specifically for the joint applicant's application. As recognized by the Office of Regulatory Staff Witness Skipper, DESC has compared the Kennedy's joint resource to other generation options in terms of cost, reliability, fuel cost, and availability. In all cases compared by DESC, the Kennedy's joint resource was chosen as the appropriate resource. Regarding the direct testimony of Witness Metz, approval of the Kennedy's joint resource should not in any way be contingent upon retirement of DESC coal units at Wateree and Williams. DESC has an obligation to serve its territorial load, tying the retirement of Wateree and Williams to the commercial availability of the Kennedy's joint resource would be short-sighted and not in the best interest of DESC customers from either a reliability or economic perspective. As stated in multiple prior IRPs and IRP updates, in all cases, the retirement of these units depends on DESC having sufficient generating resources to serve actual and forecasted load at the time that the decision is made to retire them. DESC will continue to evaluate the appropriate date for retiring these units as conditions on its electric system evolve, including the evaluation of new loads on the system and the impact of potential future environmental regulations and public policy. I also disagree with Witness Metz's suggestion that a portion of the capacity from the Kennedy's joint resource could be replaced with battery storage paired with renewables at a lower cost to customers. DESC optimized all 6 modeling scenarios with the option to build solar, battery, hybrid solar with battery, plus other resources. The model did not choose solar, battery, and hybrids over and as a preferable option compared to the Kennedy's joint resource in any of the scenarios. This concludes my rebuttal testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Neely. Mr. Settle, will you please state your name and your business address for the record?
My name is Franklin Clay Settle. My business address is 1 Riverwood Drive, Monk's Corner, South Carolina 29461.
And by whom are you employed in what capacity?
I'm employed by the South Carolina Public Service Authority as its Director of System Planning.
And did you prepare or cause to be prepared under your supervision direct testimony consisting of 59 pages that was previously filed with the Commission on December 15, 2025 in this docket?
Yes.
Do you have any changes or additions to your pre-filed direct testimony?
No.
And if I asked you the same questions here today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Chairman Powers, at this time I move that Mr. Settle's pre-filed direct testimony be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
The pre-filed direct testimony of Mr. Settle will be entered in the record as if given orally from the stand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Settle, have you prepared a summary of your direct pre-filed testimony?
Yes.
Would you please deliver your summary at this time?
I will. Good morning, Chairman Powers, Vice Chair Williams, and members of the Commission. My name is Clay Settle. I am currently the Director of System Planning for Santee Cooper. I'm responsible for developing Santee Cooper's integrated resource plans and coordinating Santee Cooper's resource planning with Central Electric Power Cooperative Incorporated. In this proceeding, I've submitted direct and rebuttal testimony on behalf of Santee Cooper. In my direct testimony, I discussed Santee Cooper's planning processes that led to the identification and support of the Kennedy's Joint Resource. I also discussed why this resource is the most cost-effective resource that will help satisfy Santee Cooper's energy and capacity needs and one that will provide less ratepayer risk while maintaining safe and reliable electric service. My testimony begins by describing how Santee Cooper's load forecasts consistently predict increasing load growth. This load growth has been confirmed through the 2023 IRP, the 2024 and the 2024 IRP updates, and the updated load forecast Santee Cooper has used in this docket. Additionally, its forecasts are supported by current system data, which reflect a growing load. Recently, Santee Cooper has experienced 8 new system peaks. Additionally, since the filing of the 2023 IRP, Santee Cooper and Central have added over 800 megawatts of new customer load with signed service agreements to the combined system. Santee Cooper's load forecast further shows that the existing generation fleet and approved additions to it will be insufficient to meet near future and to meet the growing need for electricity. For example, when Santee Cooper compared its 2025 system load forecast to its existing capacity supply, it identified a need for 1,007 megawatts of new capacity by the winter of 2033, a need that increases to 2,619 megawatts of capacity by 2035. To meet that need, Santee Cooper must construct new generation resources like the Kennedy's Joint Resource. Since the filing of the 2023 IRP, Santee Cooper has been expeditiously adding capacity to meet load growth in a manner that minimizes public impact by leveraging existing generation facilities. Santee Cooper has successfully sought commission approval for the purchase of the Cherokee NGCC, a combined cycle conversion at our Rainey generating station, and the addition of 2 LM6000 units at our Winya generating station. Santee Cooper is also adding additional capacity at Rainey through upgrades that improve units efficiency and is moving forward with the addition of battery energy storage systems at our Jeffries generating station. And it continues to seek solar through our competitive procurement of renewable energy program. Central is also bringing additional capacity to the system through 3 long-term power purchase agreements and batteries as non-shared resources. All of these system improvements and additions have been considered and included in the modeling presented in the joint application. Santee Cooper has long identified the Kennedy's Joint Resource as the key generation resource that will serve as the backbone in the most cost-effective and reliable portfolio to meet its system's growing capacity and energy needs. In fact, it first identified the need for Kennedy's in its 2023 IRP, and its subsequent 2024 and 2025 IRP updates confirmed the need. Additionally, Santee Cooper utilized Encompass simulation software to thoroughly evaluate different portfolio strategies and sensitivities that confirm the need and cost effectiveness of the Kennedy's Joint Resource. In doing so, Santee Cooper allowed the Encompass software to select a variety of different generation options, including solar, battery, wind, large frame combustion turbine generators known as CGT, aeroderivative CGT, also various natural gas combined cycle configurations, and nuclear. And it modeled these options' cost and performance characteristics, schedule constraints, fuel costs and availability, transmission constraints and costs, ancillary service capabilities, and current and reasonably expected future environmental costs and restrictions. The modeling also incorporated projections of energy efficiency and demand-side management programs. Santee Cooper further evaluated purchase power agreement options. The Encompass modeling produced an optimized portfolio, which is the least cost portfolio that meets Santee Cooper's system ancillary services, load growth, and planning reserve margin requirements. The optimized portfolio found that the Kennedy's Joint Resource, as well as a combination of battery, NGCC, and large frame CGT, as a part of the least cost portfolio to reliably meet system load growth. The Encompass modeling evaluated the decision to pursue Kennedy's through other alternative portfolio sensitivities too, including ones involving a high fuel price sensitivity, which evaluated resource decisions considering a high natural gas fuel price forecast, and a low load sensitivity, which evaluated resource decisions considering a lower load forecast that does not include any additional new large load growth from potential economic development large loads. Under both these alternative portfolios, Encompass determined that the Kennedy's joint resource is still supported. Santee Cooper further concluded that the Kennedy's joint resource will allow it to establish and maintain a more cost-effective and reliable generation system than energy efficiency measures, demand-side management, renewable energy resource generation, and feasibly available long-term power supply alternatives, joint dispatch agreements, or structural arrangements such as RTOs. My direct testimony concludes by emphasizing that the Kennedy's joint resource is a needed and key resource to help Santee Cooper meet its projected capacity need, and when comparing to reasonable and available alternatives and their associated costs, risk, and operating attributes, it is cost effective and will serve the interests of system economy and reliability. This concludes my direct testimony summary.
Thank you, Mr. Settle. Did you also prepare or cause to be prepared under your supervision rebuttal testimony consisting of 20 pages that was previously filed with the Commission on March 4, 2026 in this docket?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any changes or additions to your pre-filed rebuttal testimony?
No.
And if I asked you the same questions here today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Chairman Powers, at this time, I move that Mr. Settle's pre-filed rebuttal testimony be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
The pre-filed rebuttal testimony of Mr. Settle will be entered in the record as if given orally from the stand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Settle, have you prepared a summary of your rebuttal testimony?
Yes.
Would you please deliver your summary at this time?
Yes, sir. In my rebuttal testimony, I, among other things, respond to the direct testimony of intervener witnesses who criticize Santee Cooper's load forecasting and prospective large load customers and identification of Kennedy's as a key resource to help meet load demands. In particular, I address criticism by witness Metz that Santee Cooper's load forecasting includes prospective large loads, and witness Hodling's suggestion that Santee Cooper should use a low load forecast that excludes uncommitted large loads. In Santee Cooper's 2023 IRP docket, the Commission ordered us to consider other approaches to load forecasting and resource portfolio analysis to plan for future industrial load growth due to economic development. Since then, Santee Cooper's load forecasts have considered a risk-adjusted approach to planning for potential economic development growth. This approach is not only compliant with the Commission's order, but it is also consistent with promoting economic development in South Carolina. Waiting to develop generation resources until after a need arises ignores the significant amount of time it takes to plan for, develop, obtain permitting for, and construct a new generation resource. That said, though, my rebuttal testimony explains that Santee Cooper's load forecast methodology does not include all potential load that could connect in the future. Here, of the approximately 3,900 megawatts of potential load, Santee Cooper only included about 800 megawatts in its forecast. My rebuttal testimony notes that Santee Cooper's need to construct the Kennedy's joint resource is not contingent upon load growth from any prospective customer or large load. In fact, Santee Cooper first identified the need for this resource in its 2023 IRP, which did not include potential load growth in its planning load forecast. Also, I noted before, for purposes of this docket, Santee Cooper ran a low load sensitivity analysis, which did not include any additional new large load growth from potential economic development large loads. That analysis still supports the addition of Kennedy's. It also should be noted that if South Carolina's energy usage does not continue to grow as anticipated, or if prospective large loads do not materialize, the building of Kennedy's will enable Santee Cooper to retire its older generation plants like Wynya sooner. My rebuttal testimony additionally responds to witness Hoadley's claim that Santee Cooper has not adequately compared Kennedy's to other generation options in the terms of costs, reliability, fuel costs and availability, and transmission constraints and costs. As I discussed earlier, Santee Cooper utilized Encompass to do exactly that. Furthermore, the alternative generation resource witness Hoadley suggests are not reasonable or realistic. They are based on theoretical screening assessments unsupported by any real natural gas arrangements, suggest a joint project between Santee Cooper and Dominion at the Urquhart site, which is not authorized by Act 41, and would require Santee Cooper to start at square one for resource development, which would also result in unnecessary delay. Furthermore, they only offer a 0.33% cost difference from the portfolio that includes Kennedy's in my testimony. I also note that in my rebuttal testimony that although CCL SACE and Sierra Club witnesses raised some criticisms, they do not dispute that Santee Cooper needs additional generation capacity to meet load growth and that a natural gas combined cycle is an option to do that. In sum, Santee Cooper has conducted extensive and comprehensive modeling analysis under various sensitivities, including a low load sensitivity that concludes that Santee Cooper has a significant need for new generation, and the Kennedy's joint resource is an economic key resource that will help it reliably meet system load growth and serve the interests of system economy and reliability.
Thank you, Mr. Settle. Chairman Powers, at this time, Mr. Neely and Mr. Settle are available for questioning by the parties and the commission.
So, South Carolina Coastal Conservation League and Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. Any questions?
Good afternoon, Mr. Neely, Mr. Settle. I have questions for both of you. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Neely. I have some questions for you about the modeled cost estimate for the joint resource. Before I do that, I know you are not the environmental witness in this proceeding, but I do just want to clarify one thing for the record. I am going to put up the ACE spacing characterization document that I used earlier in my cross with Mr. Kassam and Mr. Staten. 1 second. Okay. Are you able to read that, Mr. Neely? Let me know if it's too small.
Yeah, I can read that.
Okay. Could you please read the sentence that I have bracketed that begins with the study area?
Mr. Neely is not testifying on environmental matters. We've already been through this with Mr. Kassam, and I would ask that the commission
I don't want to take a whole lot of time with it, but it is cross-examination.
It should not take but 1 second. I'm just going to have him read one sentence, and that's all. Thank you. Could you please read the sentence that begins with the study area?
The study area encompasses the Ashapo, Combahee, and Edisto River basins from the Atlantic Ocean upstream to approximately 8 to 11 kilometers, 5 to 7 miles northwest of Walterboro, with portions located in Colleton, Charleston, Beaufort, and Hampton counties.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Neely. So that's four counties, correct?
Yes, that's 4 counties.
Thank you. That is all. Okay. Mr. Neely, I'm going to show you a table from the 2023 IRP. In the 2023 IRP, Dominion modeled the joint resource as a 50% share of a new 2x1 combined cycle at a cost of $1,163 per kilowatt. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. And Dominion's modeled share of that resource was 662 megawatts, correct?
Yes.
Subject to check, in 2025 dollars at the escalation rate of 1.89% assumed in the 2023 IRP, that cost to be roughly $1,207 per kW. Does that sound right to you?
Subject to check.
Subject to check. Okay, thank you. Moving to the 2024 IRP update. So in that proceeding, Dominion again modeled a 50% share of a 2x1 combined cycle. This time it was at a cost of $1,226 per kW. Is that correct?
Yes.
And again, Dominion's share was 662 megawatts.
Right.
Again, subject to check, using Dominion's assumed escalation rate. In 2025 dollars, would that be roughly $1,250 per kW?
Subject to check.
Thank you. And moving on to 2025. Okay, in the 2025 IRB update, Dominion also, make sure I'm showing, here we go. Dominion also modeled a 2x1 combined cycle, or included that in its list of available resources, this time with a cost of $1,919 per kW, right?
Correct.
And that is, again, maybe subject to check, a 54% increase in costs from what the 2x1 combined cycle costs were in the 2024 IRP update.
Subject to check.
Okay. But in the 2025 update, Dominion changed from modeling the joint resource as 50% of a 2x1 combined cycle to modeling it as 50% share of a three 1x1 project. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And Dominion's 50% share was modeled as 998 megawatts, right?
That's correct.
And the cost of that resource was assumed to be $1,827 per kW, right?
That's correct.
Dominion did not let Plexos optimize either the selection of this resource or the timing of it, or the timing of when it came online in the 2025 IRP update, correct?
That's correct.
And so I'm going to show you a portion of ORS's report on the 2025 IRP update. So this is page 54 from that report. It states, as discussed previously in this report, the company established the timing assumptions of Dominion's 50% share of the joint resource, a 3 1x1 NGCC resource, across all build plans. The company based this timing decision on additional load from 2 new large customers, driving the need for incremental capacity and industry feedback informed from the recent RFI. Do you read that? Do I need to zoom out a little bit?
Well, I'm missing a little bit of it, but I can see most of it.
Make sure you can see all of it there. Okay. And then below that, you can see where the ORS report also stated that the company did not include specific Plexos or Servent modeling analysis to quantitatively support the reliability impact to its system. Is that correct?
That's what the sentence says, yes.
Okay. And just to make sure it's totally clear, so the addition of that 3 1x1 joint resource was fixed into the modeling in that in the 2025 reference plan, it was added into the model in 2032 without the model selecting that resource, correct?
Correct.
I'm going to show you a portion of Dominion's reply comments from that proceeding. This is page 9. Can you please read the highlighted portion for me?
What am I reading from?
Apologies. These are Dominion's reply comments to both interveners and the ORS report in the 2025 IRP update proceeding. So docket 2025-9-E.
As discussed above, the decision to pursue Kennedy Station and its ultimate configuration are no longer IRP matters. The Kennedy Station is now in its design, procurement, permitting, siting, and interconnection phase. For planning purposes, it is now committed and not a hypothetical resource. The final configuration and output of that resource will be presented in the soon-to-be-made CEC-PCN filing.
Thank you. And so Dominion essentially treated the Kennedy's plant and its modeling as though the decision had already been made to build it. Is that correct?
From a planning purpose. For planning purposes, yes.
And this proceeding is the first time that Dominion has modeled the actual costs of the joint resource to the extent that they're known. Is that right?
This is the first time we modeled the $5 billion cost of the resource.
So in the IRPs, Dominion used generic cost assumptions for those combined cycle resources, correct?
Yeah. Yes, we did.
Okay. Now I'm moving to the 2026 IRP, which was just recently filed with this commission. In the 2026 IRP, the joint resource is modeled at a cost of $2,660 per kW, correct?
Yes.
Is that the same cost that was modeled in this proceeding?
Yes. Same cost.
And so in 1 year between 2025 IRP update and to this, the increase was from $1,827 to $2,660 per kW, correct?
A lot of work has been done in that last year to determine exactly what the cost of that resource is. And that's why we can move forward with the price that we have now, confidently making the case that this is a good price. And we really expect the unit to be built for the $5 billion. So I know you've shown that the price has been increasing over the years, but a lot of work went into determining what the price is over the last year. And so I'm confident that we will be able to build this unit at this price.
It's fair to say, though, wouldn't you agree that the generic costs that were previously modeled for those, either the 2x1 or the 3 1x1 units, did not capture the cost anticipated for this specific project?
Well, generic costs don't consider all of the issues for a specific location at a specific time, and so they didn't include all the costs.
Okay, thank you. The company is not making any commitments to retire the Williams and Watery units if the joint resource is approved and comes online. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Subject to check, in the 2025 IRP update, you enforced a planning reserve margin of 15% in the summer and 20.1% in the winter. Is that right?
Yes.
And then in the recently filed 2026 IRP, you use a 20% winter reserve margin and a minimum 13% summer reserve margin. Is that right?
Well, we didn't model a summer reserve margin. We modeled just the winter reserve margin.
Okay, but 20% winter reserve margin, right? Okay. I am going to ask you a couple of questions about the reference build plan. Slide that up a little bit. Okay, so when you retire the Watery coal plant in 2033 in the reference build plan, the winter reserve margin is 27.1%. Is that correct? I think I have it highlighted right there. Okay. And then in 2034, that's 29.1%. And it only drops back down to 21% in 2035 when the Williams plant is retired. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Let's say Dominion doesn't retire its Watery plant in 2033. Subject to check, if I add the Watery plant's capacity back to Dominion's 6,914 megawatts of firm capacity need in 2033. Would you agree that that would give 7,598 megawatts of capacity?
Subject to check.
So 6,914 plus 684, 7,598.
I don't see a 6,900. You're looking at 2033.
Yes, sir, for 2033.
If we
So
add
this is just
684
talking
back,
about the watery plant. If you add the 684 megawatts from that plant back into the firm capacity requirements, you would get 7,500, or back into the firm capacity, you would get 7,598 megawatts of capacity.
subject to check.
Okay. And then subject to check, would you agree that would result in a reserve margin of 46%?
Subject to check.
That's more than twice the winter reserve margin identified in the PRM study, correct?
Yes.
And in 2035, let's assume that the Williams and Watery plants are not retired. If I add both of those back into the firm capacity in that year, so this would be 6,738 megawatts plus the 684 and 600 megawatts for both the coal plants. That would be 8,022 megawatts of total capacity. Does that sound right?
Subject to check.
Okay. And subject to check, that would result in roughly a 44% reserve margin. Does that sound right?
Sound subject to check.
Okay. Now, you confirmed earlier that the company, again, did not optimize the selection of the joint resource in the 2025 IRP. Well, actually, I'll move on from that. Mr. Neely, I want to kind of better understand what is driving the need for the incremental capacity for the Kennedy's plant. I want to show you a portion from, so this is page 19 of the 2026 IRP. I think it's essentially the same language that was also in the 2025 IRP update. This says since 2023, economic development projects have added approximately 256 megawatts of demand to Dominion's load forecast, making the prior plan impractical and creating a capacity need large enough to justify coordinating the watery retirement with the construction of the larger, more efficient, and lower emitting joint resource. Do you read that?
Yes.
So you would agree that it is the economic development projects that, quote, created the capacity need large enough to justify coordinating the watery retirement with the Kennedy's plant coming online.
Yes, that's exactly what we said.
Okay. And so you would agree, wouldn't you, that any capacity need on Dominion system is primarily driven by the retirement of the coal plants plus that economic development growth if we're talking about the year 2033. Is that correct?
Well, plus we're growing, the customer growth is adding about 70 megawatts per year to the system. So all those together.
And that's all residential growth when
No,
you say
it's
customer growth?
residential, industrial, and commercial.
Okay. If the coal plants stayed online, so assuming that a capacity need is not created from that, residential growth alone would not justify a need for a plant as large as Kennedy's, would it?
No, that growth would not justify building Kennedy's.
And when you say economic development projects here, what does that mean? What kinds of projects were those two large load customers? Do you know?
You're referring to something in the sentence, the since 23 economic development projects. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, the 256 megawatts of associated with with economic development projects.
Yeah, that's referring to two projects that we've added onto the system. The Scout project that Keller mentioned, and also one of the a data center that's located near Somerville that he mentioned as well.
Thank you. Just one moment. Okay, so this is from page 37 of the 2026 IRP. Dominion's winter 2040 peak demand forecast has residential load decreasing by 35 megawatts relative to the 2025 forecast. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Dominion did not update its energy efficiency and DSM assumptions for this proceeding. Is that correct?
That's correct.
It relied on the base DSM forecast from the 2025 IRP update. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And that medium case assumes that Dominion can achieve a savings of 0.51% of the energy sales. Is that correct?
Yes, 0.5% of retail electric customers, yeah.
And the high DSM build plan in the 2025 IRP update, that was determined by ICF in that proceeding to be a 0.74% reduction in energy sales. Is that correct?
That's correct.
In the 2026 IRP, Dominion conducted a refresh of its market potential study. Is that right?
Yes.
And now that the medium case has gone from 0.51% to 0.52% of energy sales. Is that right?
I believe that's correct.
Okay. And the high case is now 0.69% of energy sales.
Yes.
And so you're aware that the General Assembly declared that expanding utility investment and access to energy efficiency was important in Act 41, correct?
A cost-effective energy efficiency, and that's what we're pursuing in our DSM programs. Is all the cost-effective energy efficiency programs that are available, and they make up about 0.51% of the retail electric rate.
Okay, thank you. And I'll get to that in just one second. But just do want to ask, so even though the legislature has ordered expanding cost-effective energy efficiency programs, Dominion's medium case has gone up by less than 2%, and its high DSM forecast has gone down in its 2026 IRP, right?
Yeah, those are essentially the same forecast. They're not really going up or down. That's based on a different year, so it's basically the same forecast.
Okay. So Dominion has kept its forecast roughly the same.
Right. The work that ICF has done indicates that that's a good forecast, and it's what we can expect to see from our energy efficiency programs.
In the 2026 IRP, the demand response forecast specifically did go down. Isn't that right?
I don't know how to check that. I don't have that in front of me.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I do not. I don't have a copy of that either. Dominion measured cost effectiveness of its energy efficiency programs using the total resource cost test. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm not that closely involved in the DSM dockets and the DSM programs, but I believe that's true.
Okay. Are you aware that Act 41 changed the cost effectiveness testing requirements for energy efficiency in DSM programs?
I'm not.
Okay.
But I do know that it's said that the DSM program should be considered in the DSM docket and not in the IRP docket.
I understand. Whether the use of Dominion's medium DSM case versus its high DSM case was an issue in this proceeding. Isn't that correct?
I'm sorry, would you say it again?
The use of Dominion's base or medium EDSM case versus its high DSM case, which witnessed Hoteling using her modeling. That was an issue in this proceeding, correct?
Right. We don't believe that would be appropriate to use that load forecast.
I understand. So you're not aware that Act 41 changed the cost effectiveness testing requirements so that now if a program passes any two of four tests, that it's now considered to be cost effective?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Settle, I want to refer you to Santee Cooper's 2025 IRP update. Let me see how to look at it here. Okay, and specifically, this is table 5. from page 37 of the IRP update. Are you familiar with this table?
Yes, I'm familiar.
Okay. Between 2025 and 2040, direct serve residential and commercial peak winter demand increases in this forecast from 952 to 1,091 megawatts. Is that right?
Yes.
Subject to check, that's a 14% total increase over that 15-year period, right?
Subject to check.
And for Central Electric, it increases from 3,657 to 4,804 megawatts. Is that right?
Yes.
That's a 31% increase over that 15-year period. Does that sound right?
Subject to check.
Okay. And that forecast includes large loads that have signed contracts with Central and thus got moved into the standard forecast rather than the stochastic large load forecast. That's the next column over. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. That assumes natural growth from residential and commercial customers and large customers that have signed service agreements.
Okay. That stochastic forecast between, again, 2025 and 2040 increases by 865 megawatts. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What percentage of Santee Cooper's anticipated load growth over that period is attributed to large load customers?
You're referring to the potential large load column?
I'm referring to the number of large load customers that are included either in the stochastic load forecast or that have been moved into the base forecast.
What percentage are included in the entire load forecast?
Yes. What percentage of Santee Cooper's anticipated load growth is attributed to so-called large load customers?
Well, it's not as easy as that. So we have a joint forecast. We call it the load forecast for the combined system that Central and Santee Cooper both develop. That potential large load column that you're referring to is a combination of the potential large loads that both Santee Cooper and Central are actively talking to and engaging with that have interest in connecting into South Carolina and into what we refer to as the combined system. If you take that in total, that's about 3,900 megawatts in total of 25 different projects in that potential large load. Our load forecast team, they develop a risk-adjusted analysis that's not contingent on any one customer connecting or not connecting. So it's hard to parse that out between Santee Cooper and Central. And that stochastic analysis that they do takes three factors into consideration. One is the probability that a customer will connect or not connect. The other is the timing of that customer connecting. And the third probability is the ramp rate that customer, or the magnitude of load that customer will actually bring to the system. Then they run 50,000 different scenarios under those three probabilities for each customer and develop this stochastic analysis to look at all the different potential outcomes of that large load. And in the load forecast, what you're seeing, that 865 by 2044, is what we refer to from a statistics perspective, the P50 or the median. And so it's roughly 20 to 25% of the total potential load that could connect. So I guess that 865 is intended to be a risk-adjusted, representing any customer that could connect on the Central or Santee Cooper system.
Okay, well, let's maybe take this in parts then, because I recognize that the stochastic load forecast includes customers that may not ultimately can interconnect to Santee Cooper system. Do you know how many large load customers have committed to either Central or Santee Cooper and what their associated load is that are included in the base load forecast?
So I can tell you that after the commission ordered Santee Cooper to consider economic development growth in our planning from the 2023 IRP. That first load forecast that supported the 2024 IRP, that 865, I believe, was subject to check 1100 in the 2024 IRP. About 50% of that has connected and signed service agreements. If you look at it from a bigger picture, since the 2023 IRP, approximately over 800 megawatts of load has connected and signed service agreement, and that's a combination of all load. That's large load and manufacturing and residential commercial growth. So it's, as far as what's actually connected, over 800 megawatts has connected over the past few years.
Okay. How many of those large load customers or the large load customers that have signed committed agreements are data centers?
I think that there's a couple that are, but there's also existing industrial customers, manufacturing customers. It's a combination of all types of industries.
Okay, so do you know the number of how many large load customers or how many data centers have signed commitments with either Central or Santee Cooper?
I'm not sure what I'm able to say publicly about our customers specifically, but we're aware of the announcements that have happened in the state.
Okay, thank you. So did you hear my questioning of Mr. Staten earlier today?
In what question specifically?
So regarding some of his testimony to the legislature, where he testified that 70% of Santee Cooper's anticipated load growth was attributed to data centers. Do you recall that?
Yes, I recall that.
Is that figure correct to the best of your knowledge?
To the best of my knowledge, that figure is correct, and that figure also is represented by this potential load growth. So that 70%, a significant portion of that is that potential load growth.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Settle, Mr. Neely. Those are all of my questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mixon. Sierra Club?
Good afternoon. I have some questions for both of you, but I'll just start with my questions for Mr. Neely. So, Mr. Neely, can you please turn to page 5, line 20 of your direct testimony? At the time that Dominion modeled resource portfolios for its modified 2020 IRP, you stated that the preferred plan selected by the model included new gas units whose construction coincided with the forecasted retirement of watery and volumes, correct?
I don't see that in my testimony on page 5.
So it's from page 5 to page 6, but it looks like you said that Dominion's preferred plan, RP8, in the modified 2020 IRP had identified the need for a gas combined cycle plant of 553 megawatts and another combustion turbine, which coincided with the forecasted retirement of watery and volumes. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Do you have a copy of Sierra Club witness Lucy Metz's direct testimony in front of you?
I do.
Okay. Can you please turn to table 3 on page 17 of her testimony?
Page 17?
Yeah, table 3, which is on page 17. And maybe I will also place it here for everyone's reference. Okay. Do you have any reason to disagree with witness Metz's summary of Dominion's preferred portfolio in its modified 2020 IRP?
I don't have the IRP in front of me, but a subject to check, I would agree with it. That matches the 553 and the 523 in my testimony.
Okay, thank you. So as of 2020, both the Wateree and Williams coal plants were projected to retire in 2028. Is that right?
That's correct.
So you would agree that in 2020, the company's construction of new gas capacity was tied to the retirement of the Wateree and Williams coal plants, correct?
Yes.
And looking at one row below in this table, would you agree that in its preferred portfolio in its 2023 IRP, Dominion projected constructing a new combined cycle plant by 2031?
Yes.
And looking one column to the right, Wateree's projected retirement was year-end 2028, and Williams' projected retirement was year-end 2030, right?
Correct.
So both the Wateree and Williams plants were projected to be retired before the new combined cycle plant came online in 2031, right?
Well, no. The Williams plant year-end 2030 meant that it was coincident with the new combined cycle coming online in 2031.
Okay, so it
It
would have
says
been
year-end
retired.
2030.
Okay, and is the 2031 in the column to the left of that referred to like essentially January 1st, 2031?
Yes.
Okay, so both of them were projected to be retired before or by the date on which the new combined cycle plant will come online.
Yes.
Thanks for clarifying that. So still looking at this table, in Dominion's 2024 IRP update, in the preferred portfolio, the company again projected that Wateree would retire in 2028 and Williams in 2030, right? Both year end, or is that right?
Yes.
And again, Dominion projected it would bring online a new combined cycle plant in 2031. This time, I assume also beginning of 2031. So either after or coinciding exactly with these coal plants' retirements, right?
Right. Yes.
And in one row below for its 2025 IRP update, Dominion's preferred portfolio included new gas build in 2032, immediately following Wateree and Williams' projected retirement at year-end 2031, right?
Well, coincident with the retirement of Wateree and Williams.
Okay, thanks. So again, it was supposed to come on January 1st, 2032, essentially.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So throughout the past 5 years, Dominion's IRP proceedings show that the projected retirement of the Wateree and Williams coal plant has been tied to the construction of the joint resource, correct?
That's correct.
Can you please turn to page 8 of your rebuttal testimony and read this sentence starting at line 19 from in addition to coming online? Sorry, that's on page 8 of your rebuttal. Page 8 of your rebuttal testimony, line 19.
You said page 8?
Yeah, I know I'm having you flip through pages. Yeah, page 8 of your rebuttal.
And which line?
Line 19. Sorry, I don't know if this is working.
In addition, all of the bill plans described in my testimony modeled the retirement of Wateree and Williams within a year of the Kennedy's joint resource coming online.
Thanks. So even in the present CCPCN docket, the joint applicant's modeling results tied the retirement of the Wateree and Williams plants to the construction of the joint resource. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And now to make you turn back again, can you please turn to figure 4 on page 24 of your direct testimony?
I'm at figure 4.
Okay, thanks. So this figure illustrates that each of the build plans Dominion modeled in support of its application include 1,284 megawatts worth of retiring generation, right?
That's correct.
And that 1,284 megawatts of retiring generation comprises the entire capacity of both the Wateree and Williams plants, correct?
That's correct.
The joint resource is supposed to be operational by mid-2033, right?
Yes, we're modeling it is online January 1st of 2033, but the plan is to provide everything to be operating by the middle of 2033.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. And if you look at page 13 of your direct, then Dominion's current plan is to retire Wateree by year-end 2032, right?
Yes.
So Dominion plans to retire Wateree within, essentially at the same time that Kennedy's it becomes operational, correct?
Consistent with the online date of the joint resource.
Okay, thanks. And if EPA's Section 111 greenhouse gas rules do still apply, then Dominion also plans to retire Williams coincident with the joint resource becoming operational, right?
We plan to meet all the EPA regulations, whatever they are at that time.
Okay, thank you. Can you please turn to page 10 of your rebuttal testimony?
Okay. I'm there.
Thank you. And can you please read the sentence on lines 6 to 7, beginning with, do you call it desk optimized, and ending with other resources?
DES optimized all 6 modeling scenarios with the option to build solar, battery storage, and hybrid solar and storage plus other resources.
Thanks. Yet in conducting this modeling, Dominion imposed build limits on the renewables, right?
I'm sorry, ask the question again.
In conducting this modeling, Dominion imposed build limits on the renewables, right?
There was a 300 megawatt per year build limit on solar, only solar.
And wasn't the model selection of paired solar and storage also limited to 300 megawatts per year?
For the solar piece, yes. So that would, yes, it would imply there as well.
Okay, thanks. So Dominion did not allow the model to select, for example, a smaller combined cycle along with more than 300 megawatts of solar and storage capacity, right?
Well, it could certainly select more storage than that. It could select as much storage as it wanted. It could select 300 megawatts of solar. It could select 1, 2, or 3 of the one-on-one combined cycles. It could select frame CTs. It could select any of the resources that we model.
Okay, so it could have selected more storage, but not more solar paired with storage?
Right.
Okay. Dominion has no technical barrier to building more than 300 megawatts of solar per year within its service territory, right?
There's no technical requirement, but that's a reasonable assumption. The results of the model, if you don't give it some reasonable limitation, are unbuildable.
Can you
try to build all 1,000 megawatts of solar if it wants 1,000 in 1 year? So if you get reasonable modeling, you limit the number of megawatts you can build on your system to a level that's consistent with what you've seen historically, and that's what we've seen. 300 megawatts is a reasonable limit for building solar on our system.
Okay, and the reason
Mr.
why it would...
Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm having trouble hearing the witness. I know he's trying to be nice and look at who's asking the question, but I need him to face the microphone if he would, so I can hear him.
All right, thank you. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good suggestion. Okay. I will not look at...
You can watch me on the video. Oh, thanks. And do you mind just explaining briefly why it is that the model would otherwise select more than 300 megawatts of solar? Is it more cost effective, for example?
Well, if you look at the cost of solar, it changes every year. And we use an NREL projection of solar costs, which dips around year 2032. So it's dropping until 2032, then it starts rising. So the model will anticipate how much it needs by 2050 and build it all in 2032 if we don't put a limit on it. And that's not reasonable.
I see. Okay, so the 300 megawatt restriction is more so based on what Dominion has connected to its system historically, not what it projects will be possible in the future. Is that right?
Both.
Okay, I thought you said it was based on historical build limits.
Right. We believe that the historical build limits are reasonable forecasts of what will be built or can be built in the future.
Okay. When paired with solar, energy storage can save power that is generated by solar units and return it to the grid at times of peak demand, right?
That's generally the reason you build storage, yes.
Thanks. And Mr. Neal, you would agree that solar has no fuel costs, right?
It has no fuel costs, but it does have quite a significant cost. In fact, if we were to replace the Kennedy's resource with solar and battery, it would cost $13.5 billion.
And that's just, yeah.
If we were to replace the Kennedy's resource with solar and battery, it would cost $13.5 billion. To replace the energy from Kennedy's with solar, you would need 6,000 megawatts of solar. Solar operates at a 25% capacity factor. Kennedy's operates as a 75% capacity factor. So to replace 2,000 megawatts of a gas resource, you would need 6,000 megawatts of solar to replace that energy. And solar doesn't provide any capacity value, so you'd have to build 2,000 megawatts of batteries to provide the same capacity as Kennedy's. The cost of that would be $13.5 billion. That's why the model doesn't select solar and batteries at the time when it could. When it selects Kennedy's, it selects Kennedy's because it's the cost-effective resource.
Okay. Solar and battery storage do tend to have lower operation and maintenance costs than coal plants when compared with those, right?
I don't have any numbers in front of me.
Okay, so you're not aware of the comparison between O&M costs among solar and battery versus coal plants?
You're just talking about the operating costs?
Yeah, that's right.
You're not talking about, well, I mean, yeah, the operating costs may be lower, but you got to pay to build the units. You can't just, you don't get them for free. And then
Yeah,
the free
of course.
costs.
You have to pay to build coal units as well, right? It's
If I may, could I add some comments around solar and that cost as well? Help my colleague out here.
you definitely can. Yeah, I have some questions for you, but you can jump in. Yeah.
The line of questioning just seems to be that solar can be added as much as you possibly want in the model. It's in my testimony, Santee Cooper has tried to add solar. We issued an RFP in 2020. We are awarded 425 megawatts subject to check of solar, us jointly with Central. And due to challenges in implementing those projects, only 200 megawatts came to fruition, and that was energized last December. We also last year completed our first competitive procurement of renewable energy program, the first RFP through that. We awarded, I believe, subject to check, over 200 megawatts of solar through the completion of that process. And only one project out of the two is moving forward due to siting challenges. So to say that there's no risk with solar, there's risk with every type of generation. When you go to siting, you also have to connect solar, and we see in our studies that solar can cause transmission upgrades. And so you have to connect these resources, and they have risk as well. From a cost perspective, in Santee Cooper's analysis, our projected average system costs in our optimized portfolio, subject to check, is roughly $63 a megawatt hour. The cost assumptions for solar in our analysis, which is consistent with our 2025 IRP update, which was also developed in consultation with stakeholders, one who you represent in this proceeding, is roughly $80 a megawatt hour. So the cost of solar is substantially higher than the projected levelized cost of our optimized portfolio for Santee Cooper in this application, just to give you a cost reference.
Okay, that's all very helpful context. Though I know solar makes up a lot of both of your systems based on what Mr. Staten and Mr. Kissen were testifying about earlier.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, going back to Mr. Neely, if that's all right for now. Mr. Neely, were you in the room a bit earlier when Mr. Staten testified that the joint resources cost was estimated to be 2.3 to 2.5 billion in August 2024?
I heard him say that, yes.
And since then, the cost has doubled to 5 billion, right?
Well, no, we never modeled a cost at $2.5 billion.
Okay, the estimated cost is now $5 billion, which is double
That
the
is
amount.
true. The cost today is $5 billion. The first cost that we modeled of the joint resource was $3.6 billion. So it has not doubled since we first modeled that resource.
And when was that, by the way?
2025.
When do you know when in 2025?
The 2025 IRP, we
Okay.
we were modeling the joint resource at a total cost of $3.6 billion.
Okay, so from then to the time of filing this application, the cost did increase by about 1.4 billion. You're saying?
Well, we got more precise in calculating the cost. Did the cost increase? Yeah, there was some costs that were increased, but the cost calculation, the estimation of the cost got more precise.
Okay, thanks. So if you look at page 14 of your direct testimony, in its modeling in support of the joint resource, Dominion considered a scenario where capital costs could increase by 20%, correct?
That's correct.
And under that scenario, the joint resource was still selected, right?
Yes.
But you did not consider any scenarios where the total capital costs increased by more than 20%, correct?
We did not.
So, for example, you did not model a scenario where the total costs increased by, say, 100%, right?
Did not.
Thanks. I think I will spare you a few questions that I'll maybe direct to Mr. Walker instead. But you would agree that the cost of the joint resource could increase by more than 20% above $5 billion, right?
Is it possible that it would increase? It's possible that solar would increase by that much as well.
Okay, and you would agree, like, supply chain shortages and delays could potentially increase the cost of this project above $5 billion, right?
It certainly could, but I strongly believe, as I said up front, that the $5 billion is a estimate that we spent quite a bit of time creating and analyzing and getting impact from the market, and I'm very confident that we'll be able to build this resource for $5 billion.
Okay, thanks. Would Dominion be willing to guarantee the project's capital costs will not increase by more than 20%?
I can guarantee you that we will not get cost recovery on any cost that's not prudent.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Neely. I'm going to also ask Mr. Settle a few questions. So, good afternoon, Mr. Settle. Is it accurate, based on page 21 of your testimony, and I believe you just said this, that Santee Cooper first identified its claimed need for a new combined cycle unit in 2023?
You said page 21?
Yes. You may have just testified to this in your summary.
Yes.
Thank you. Do you have a copy of Sierra Club witness Lucy Metz's direct testimony in front of you?
No, I do not.
No problem, because I will place it up there as well. Okay. So, do you see table, okay, do you have any reason to disagree with her summary of Santee Cooper's preferred portfolio in its 2023 IRP?
No.
And looking at the first row on that table, is it accurate that Santee Cooper was planning to retire its Winya coal plant at the start of 2031, the same year the company was planning to bring online a new combined cycle plant?
Yes.
That combined cycle unit would have been 1,020 megawatts, right?
That's what it says on the table.
And it refers to what has since become the joint resource, right?
Sorry, can you ask that again?
Oh, sorry. The combined cycle unit refers to what has since then become the joint resource?
Yes, and I believe in our 2023 IRP supplemental, which was ultimately approved by the commission as the preferred portfolio, that combined cycle was the joint resource.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you. And looking at the row below that, in Santee Cooper's 2024 IRP update, the company's preferred portfolio again included a 1,020 megawatt combined cycle unit that would come online in 2031, correct?
Correct.
And again, it projected retiring Winya at the start of 2031, correct?
Correct.
So in 2023 and 2024, Winya's projected retirement date was tied to the construction of the joint resource, correct?
Correct.
Can you please turn to page 22 of your direct testimony?
Okay.
Can you please read from the words, the 2025 IRP update on line 7 to Winya Generating Station on line 11?
Sorry, what were those lines again?
No worries. Can you please read from, on page 22, from line 7 where it says the 2025 IRP update to line 11 where it says Winya Generating Station?
The 2025 IRP update confirmed and refined the primary conclusions of the 2023 IRP and the 2024 IRP update. This analysis confirmed the need for the Kennedy's joint resource by 2033 and identified the need for 2 additional combined cycle resources installed coincident with the retirement of the Winya Generating Station.
Okay, thank you. I will skip a few questions for you. Can you please turn to, actually, you could turn if you want, but I think you know the answer. In its modeling in support of the joint resource, Santee Cooper also considered a scenario where capital costs of thermal resources might increase by 20%, right? That is on page 50 of your direct testimony.
Yes, but if I may, this testimony you just asked me to read, can I ask you to flip to a page?
Sure.
So on page 44 of my direct testimony, it's table FCS 3. There's been a lot of discussion about retirements, and I just want to put it into context that, you know, what we're talking about here. We plan the system as a whole, and each resource has a place in the system, and that place in the system is necessary to maintain our system reliably and efficiently. What you see on table 3 is the most economic portfolio that the Encompass modeling developed, giving all the resource options that we provided to it with the most up-to-date cost and operating assumptions that we had available. And granted, we even updated our cost assumptions specifically for this application for the Santee Cooper's modeling. What you see here is in the retirement of Winya by 2035, 1,150 megawatts. You see the joint NGCC, that's the project before this commission in the application, coming online in 2033, 1,098 or 1098 megawatts. You also see 1,296 megawatts of additional combined cycle in 35 when Winya retires.
Yeah.
All of these things are necessary, and the fact that I guess I'm struggling with this line of questioning because we're not here to ask permission for these additional combined cycles. We're here to ask permission for this joint CC. And I just want to put in perspective here, when we plan a portfolio, it's for the entire system. And so when you change a major key component like Kennedy's, it has significant impacts to the entire system and our plan. So just want to put it in context there.
Okay, thanks. That was helpful because I think you just illustrated the part that you read, which was that that you had confirmed the need for 2 additional combined cycle resources coincident with retirement of Winya. So thank you for elaborating on that. Okay, so I believe I just had asked you a question about a scenario where the capital costs increased by 20%. Do you want me to ask that again?
Yes, please.
Okay, sure, no problem. So in its modeling in support of the joint resource, Santee Cooper also considered a scenario where the capital costs of thermal resources might increase by 20%, right?
That's correct.
And the joint resource is considered a thermal resource?
That's correct.
And under that model, the joint resource was still selected, right?
The joint resource and the additional combined cycles that are in that table I just referenced. And I do want to point out, for Santee Cooper's analysis, we only increased the cost of thermal units by that 20%. We did not increase the cost of renewables, and the most economic portfolio still selected the combined cycles in that table.
Okay. But you didn't consider any scenarios where the capital cost of thermal resources increased by more than 20%, correct?
Not for this application, no.
Okay. Would Santee Cooper be willing to guarantee that that these capital costs will not increase by more than 20%?
I think there's been plenty of testimony today that we're not able to guarantee that. And, you know, before I worked at Santee Cooper, my background was in engineering construction of large industrial facilities, and the process in developing and planning for a large facility is just that it's a process. And as you refine the assumptions and you refine the analysis and the estimates, you get a clear picture of what those costs are. And then once you go to execute that cost, you put project management practices in place, which Witness Stevick and Witness Walker can speak to, that controls the project cost and schedule through the entire duration of the project. And I believe that Santee Cooper and Dominion are both set up for a successful project, and all the oversight that Witness Staten and Witness Kassam mentioned. There will be significant oversight on this project. So I can't guarantee a 20%, but we can guarantee that this project will be executed and in a very transparent manner and with the best project management practices that Witness Stevick and Walker can talk about.
Okay, thanks. I will save some of these questions for witness Stevick and Walker. So those are all the questions I have for you both.
Okay,
thank you.
No questions for this witness.
Carolina Gas Transfer.
No questions.
Nucor Steel.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right. CMC Steel, South Carolina. No one's here. Santee Cooper Industrial Customer Group.
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Lauren V. Moody Stanfield.
No questions from Mr. Burbidge or Ms. Stanfield.
Thank you very much. Any questions from Office of Regulatory Staff?
No questions from ORS.
All right. Commission questions.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. Good to have both of you with us today. Both you, Mr. Settle and Mr. Neely. Wanted to ask you a quick question. Our first panel, Mr. Kassam, Mr. Staten, both highlighted the ramping feasibility of both the Jasper and the Rainey facilities earlier today. One in your service area and one in your service area. And I know this application for this unit, of course, is a baseload unit. Could you talk to us a little bit about the ramping capabilities of the Kennedy's facility that you have in this application? What kind of flexibility you might have? Would the turbines need to come offline to reduce output facility, those type things? Or, and again, I recognize, this is a base load unit, but wanted just to maybe have you touch a little bit on your ramping feasibility for this unit.
Let me just, I'll address part of that and then I'll let Clay address some of it. But one of the values of this project is the fact that it's actually 3 one-on-one combined cycles. We can start one and not start the other 2. We could start 2 and not 1. We can run them all 3 simultaneously. And each of them have the capability to get online at full capacity in hours if they're in warm condition. If they're cold, it will take longer than that, but they can get from 0 to full capacity in hours. And so that's one of the reasons why combined cycles are so valuable to utilities, because we have to follow load, and the load changes every minute, and particularly from the low point in the day to the high point of the day, you may need 2,000 more megawatts of capacity to meet that load. So combined cycles are very flexible in following load.
Well, thank you for your answer. I know Mr. Kassam talked about how it could enhance the further deployment of solar, and you just described that yourself. So thank you. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Settle?
Oh, yes, sir. I'd add that when you look at our analysis and you look at the system throughout the day, I like to think of it just our daily life. Like when you wake up on a cold morning, you turn the heat on, you might start your washer and dryer, you start the oven. Everybody's energy use is peaking in the morning of a cold winter morning. And then when you leave to go to work or go to school, that energy load, kind of comes down and then peaks back up in the evenings when everybody's back home using energy. And that's what we call our daily load shape. And what this combined cycle is able to do, and it shows in our analysis on the projected use during the day, when that, when solar is available, that combined cycle can ramp down. But then in the evening, when that load is peaking, is coming back up, that combined cycle can follow that and ramp up with the load as the solar comes back down. And then the same goes in the morning. When the morning load is peaking, that combined cycle can ramp up to meet load growth. And then as solar comes online, it can follow down with solar. So It's a very flexible unit that allows gives our Energy Control Center a very useful tool to manage the system.
Well, thank you for both of your answers, Mr. Chairman. That's all I had of this panel.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitfield. Any further commissioner questions? Commissioner Britt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Neely, I will direct these next couple of questions to you. When did Dominion Energy South Carolina and Santee Cooper begin investigating using the Kennedy's facility?
Well, we first modeled it in 2023, so I believe the discussion started in 2022.
Okay.
Although we had been modeling similar type units, but not a shared resource.
Okay. And in your rebuttal testimony, you made a comment that Ms. Metz had suggested to Dominion Energy South Carolina to study solar and battery storage as an alternative to constructing the Kennedy Station. And in your testimony that you've given, and I've listened to yours and Mr. Settles, you said y'all actually have done that in many, many different versions, not just battery and storage. You used every other, I think there were 6 models that y'all ran, or 6 different options. Is that correct?
6 different environments. Each one of them had 15 different resources that could be optimized. We ran a high load. We ran a high fuel price. We ran a high capital cost. We ran a high renewables. We ran 2 different reference cases with and without greenhouse gas. And each one of those had 15 different resources that could be optimized to meet the need. And they always chose the Kennedy's resource to meet the need.
And Mr. Kassam made a comment earlier about, I think we were down in Walterboro when this gentleman stood up and recommended that y'all look seriously at solar. And after hearing some of your testimony just a few minutes ago, I was way off base when I talked about the Clemson professor, which in another case, he had done an in-depth paper demonstrating that the project in Anderson, which was only requiring 1,400 megawatts, would take 12,440 acres to generate the amount of megawatts and power, and that facility wasn't necessary to build a natural gas facility. And I quoted him. And after listening to what you said a few minutes ago, I was way, way under. And with all due respect to all the Clemson graduates in the room, he may want to go back and restudy that paper. Because if I heard correctly, to generate on this project, to generate 2,000 megawatts, 2,100 megawatts, it will take 6,000 megawatts of solar.
When we talk about energy, so we're talking about energy. So a 2,000 megawatt plant operated at a 75% capacity factor means that 75% of the year it's at its full capacity. That's a way to think about it. Well, to get that much energy out of solar, it only operates at a 25% capacity factor. And we know why it's 25% because it doesn't operate at all at night, right? So to get something that's operating at a 25% capacity factor to give you as much energy as something operating at a 75% capacity factor, you need 3 times as much.
And if I'm in a hospital or a nursing home or in my home, when I flip on that power, I want it to come on. And so if it takes 2,000 megawatts of natural gas energy or 6,000 solar to equate that, that's important. And so what I did, I used again the Clemson's professor's model here. And just on that 6,000 megawatts of solar power, you're talking about 60,000 acres of solar facility. 60,000. Right. And then you mentioned you would need 2,000 megawatts of battery storage.
Yes.
And again, in another meeting or hearing, we saw some battery storage facilities. So did that come? Those two combined, the solar and the battery storage, does that come up to $13.5 billion?
Yes, it does.
All right. Just wanted to make sure I understood that. Do you know how large not Kennedy's. Do you know how large Colleton County is as a county?
I do not know.
Acreage is 676,160 acres large, which is 56 square miles. You add those two facilities up. If it comes close, if I got my battery storage facility right, you're talking about 80,000 acres. We just had we had some public hearings, and we had a project or a docket that came before us, and it was a county, and not far from here, 1,750 acres, and the community rose up in opposition to it. 1,750 acres would generate 170 megawatts, and the applicant withdrew the application. You're talking about 80,000 acres, which is 12% of Colleton County. We talked about it earlier during, again, Mr. Staton's and Mr. Kassam's testimony, that 4 of the 10 fastest growing counties in the state of South Carolina are located not far from this facility: Horry, Jasper, Berkeley, Dorchester. And again, flipping back to the Anderson project, I think it was the county administrator testified that they looked at doing a 200-acre solar facility in Anderson, and the community rose up, and that project was stopped. And again, that's part of what led them to where they are today. Did I hear you right? And is my math somewhat close? I'm not an engineer from Clemson.
You can, it takes about, well, on an acre, you can put about 20 megawatts of batteries. That's the rule of thumb that I use. 20 megawatts per acre for batteries.
Okay.
And so for 2,000 megawatts, you would need 100 acres for that batteries. That's the rule of thumb that I use. Now, I want to make sure we're not against solar and batteries. We've got 1,200 megawatts of solar on our system, provide 10% of the energy needs that we had last year. We've got a 66 megawatt battery. We intend on building more of both of those, more solar, more batteries. But it's not a substitution for Kennedy's.
And that's, I've heard so much testimony, down in Walterboro, here in this room, about imploring us to look at solar. And we've heard even, comments up at the podium directed towards both of y'all. Have you looked at this? Have you looked at it? Are you concerned about this project being 20% higher? 20% higher than $5 billion. Likewise, 20% higher than $13.5 billion. That's what, and I'm not against solar. I supported solar in Spartanburg County on many projects, and we worked and helped some of the solar projects happen. But, people, need to know the facts and know the truth. So anyhow, I appreciate your answers, and, I don't have anything right now for you, Mr. Settle. Appreciate it.
Any further commissioner questions?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Quick question for Mr. Settle. I appreciate your testimony regarding making system-wide decisions versus individual facility decisions. Could you further elaborate, and maybe this is more so theory than actual law, but could you further elaborate on why you think, or at least in your experience, why it's tempting to want to make a facility comparison, say combined cycle versus solar or coal or any other generation source, to make a facility comparison and maybe forget that you all are making system decisions as compared to an individual facility decision?
So I think I understand the question, and from my perspective, I think there's a view of certain people or certain folks that our energy needs can be met through certain types of resources. And I understand their views. I understand their perspective. We have to look at what our system needs on a minute-by-minute basis and the types of resources that are the most economic to provide reliable service on a minute-by-minute basis. And then the other piece is, I mean, this is a citing proceeding for a specific resource, and our modeling was set up intended to evaluate the decision of this resource and the impact on our system and our portfolio if that decision is made or not made. So from my perspective, I think it's a view of this is a fossil fuel resource in a combined cycle, and there's a view that you could do it through other means. And you know, from Santee Cooper's perspective, this is going to be a key resource in our future portfolio to meet system needs. The other thing that doesn't come out, which shows in our analysis, is the addition of a resource like Canadies actually allows you to have less reliance on other resources. Like, for example, when Canadies comes online in 2033, in our analysis, we show a reduction in reliance of our coal units in that in the analysis. And so, and then we also ran a renewable portfolio. It was the no new fossil portfolio, where we didn't allow the model to build fossil fuel resources. And that showed that there was more reliance on coal units through the future. So your decisions have system impact in what you're relying on the system to meet that energy and demand as well. Does that answer your question?
It does. And just to wrap up, when you all make decisions, are you going into, whether it's models or general discussions, are there any preconceived notions or any favoritism given to any generation source?
No, sir. And I think the commission's fully aware. We have a fully public stakeholder process in the development of our IRPs, our resource plans. And that process allows public and stakeholder input, and we strongly consider their input. But when we set up the analysis, we set it up with the intention of finding the most economic solution for Santee Cooper. Just for example, in the analysis that we presented in this application, the only resources that were committed were resources that we had made decisions on, and the commission had approved, like the Rainy 2 combined cycle, and so the decisions around Canadies in the 30s, there was nothing preconceived and nothing committed. We allowed the model to find the most economic solution.
And so, in your opinion, where we are today, we've gotten here. I mean, this application. When I say we, the application that's before us, where we are today, we've gotten here through, would you say, an inclusive process where all voices were heard, opinions were considered?
Yes, sir. And just to further elaborate on that, since the approval of our 2023 IRP, we've had subject to check 20 different stakeholder meetings where stakeholders and the public were allowed to comment on our resource planning, our assumptions, our methodologies that we use to develop our resource plans. I think we have been very open to all considerations.
Thank you, Mr. Settle. I don't have anything for you, Mr. Neely, but thank you for your testimony. Mr. Chair, that's all I have.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you, sir.
Mr. Vice Chair. Commissioner Cast.
One thing, and I think you've already answered it, because I'm not going to go into detail. Being a Clemson man, I'll try to make this simple. Thinking about the model, and I don't know a thing about y'all's model. I know a little bit about fundamentals of certain models and such. But if the companies or if the user decided to limit or dictate a particular thing, like we're going to only allow X amount of output for gas, X amount for something else, and X amount for solar or whatever, you would have the ability to do that, correct?
Yes, sir.
So if, I'm not saying the only inputs, but the inputs are reliability, cost, affordability. if that is your driver and you put whatever you put in it, the cost that you, I guess, get from the places you get them, it will spit out whatever it determines is the most economical or reliable. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. That's what you did in these RFPs and these models.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we utilized at the time the most up-to-date assumptions, and we use industry experts to develop those assumptions, and we work with our stakeholder working group to review those assumptions, and we, essentially, to put it simple, load those assumptions into the model, and then evaluate, resource decisions in the portfolios. Yes, sir.
See, being a Clemson man, I ask it a little different than Commissioner Vice Chair Williams, but all right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Caston. Mr. Neely, I have one question. In your modeling, I'm just looking at it. Some are done with greenhouse gas rules in effect. Some are done without greenhouse gas rules in effect. Are the greenhouse gas rules good or bad for the environment?
It's actually bad for the environment. It's interesting that that it's the case, but the CO2 cost, or the CO2 that's generated, is higher with the greenhouse gas rules than with no greenhouse gas rules, and that seems strange. You would think just the opposite, but what happens is the greenhouse gas rules limit the capacity factors on the new efficient units, and they don't limit the capacity factors on the old inefficient units. And so you end up with actually more CO2 emitted with greenhouse gas rules than without greenhouse gas rules.
So if you don't have greenhouse gas rules, the environment's better off?
That's right.
That makes absolutely no sense.
It does make absolutely no sense, but that's what we have.
Okay.
Now, let me add one little piece here to your question. When Kennedy's comes online, the CO2 emitted in the forecast drops 18%. That unit is going to make our system lower emitting overall. So the system CO2 emissions will drop 18% the year that Santee Kennedy's begins to operate.
Well, my first question was going to lead to a second question, that if greenhouse gas rules are good for the environment, why not follow them regardless of who's in power or what administration?
It's not a good rule.
Okay. That's all I have. Any further commissioner questions? All right. I don't know about the rest of you, but I think it's quitting time. We would like to start back tomorrow at 9:30 and run a little later. I know some of you may have to arrange babysitters or whatever. But if you could have the next panel in place at 9:30. I'm sorry, is any redirect?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just confirming no redirect.
Okay, thank you very much. I apologize. Going back to what I was saying, if we could be in place at 9:30 in the morning, I know that's pushing it for some of you with traffic and everything else, but we really need to, still got a lot to go through. Is any objection to starting at 9:30 from any party? All right, well, hope you all have a good evening. We're in recess until 9:30 in the morning. Thank you.